As the storm lasts, continuing toward the northeast here into the morning hours. This is a look now from Houston Healthcare. This is looking on the back parking lot here, and this camera angle, at times it gets really full of rain and wind. It'll get jostled around for a little bit. This is one of many places seeing tropical storm force winds that are in the 40-something mile-per-hour range as far as the gusts are concerned. We'll go from there and show you the look at the winds. These are sustained winds. So this is an average over time of how the winds are just kind of steadily blowing, and you can see we've gotten up to 25 in Macon, nearly 40 in Cordele, just as a steady wind. How about the wind gusts that are going on? Well, those are starting to pick up a lot more. Macon was at 47 miles an hour just a little bit ago. That is what Cordele is seeing right now. Earlier they were over 50 miles an hour, so seeing fluctuations at times depending on when these observation sites grab data and bring it in. So it's not every second that it's checking for these gusts. It's every once in a while it's pulling and sampling data. So sometimes these numbers look like they go up and go down. The actual eye of the storm still down around Albany, but now we're starting to get reports in places like Americus, Sumter County now, and Macon County also getting in reports of some damage. Here's something here, Montezuma. Spotter talking about a tree down in let's see, Virginia Circle, Montezuma there. Then we get into, if you're in Oglethorpe, a tree reported down striking a police car on Macon Street in Oglethorpe. So this is, again, where the storm is, the eye of the storm is getting closer. Macon County, trees and power lines reported down at the intersection of Wadsworth Road and Highway 128. So this is going right along with the way the forecast has been going. The places that are getting hit first are already seeing trees down, power lines down as well. Cordele, we found out a little while ago, before we found out that the power has gone out for most of the area, is that we lost data down there. We weren't getting any data as far as wind speed and wind gusts, but then it started to come back up. So now that there's some things on generator down there, we're able to at least get our wind speed and wind gusts, and that's one of our more important sites here to see what's coming in. And we'll have more details on that in just a little bit. But Cordele, a good chunk of that area is already out of power, and I think that's going to follow suit as we continue on through, again, mainly from Macon south and eastward. I'm not saying that you can't see bad stuff as you go farther toward the north. At least in the short term, it won't be as bad as it is from Macon southward. Again, Warner Robins, we showed you a moment ago, the Skycam there. Every Skycam that we keep looking at, similar situation. Let's go on from here to the next thing, and that is going to be a bigger picture of wind gusts right here. I'm taking you down here now to where Albany is. The eye of the storm is right there just on the outside of town in Albany. But of course, that's the peaceful part. It's right here in the eye wall that Albany is getting slammed with 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts right now. So that fluctuating at times could be over that, so over 74 hurricane force winds possible there. Here's a look at the radar shot. Flood warnings, flash flood warnings are out now. It includes southern Houston County, Macon County, Taylor County, Dooley and Crisp, and Sumter, and this is going to continue. We'll see more of these green boxes going up. I've been talking about for the past day or so that flooding would be a secondary issue. I still think it is when you put it up next to the wind. There's a ton of rain out here, so we're going to have some localized flooding. This is another reason to not be on the roads tonight. If you think, oh, I can get down that road, and then there's flooding on the road and you don't know how deep it is, and then you've got wind blowing like this with trees that could come down in spots. Just not very smart to be out there. We zoom in the northern part of central Georgia, and you can see the rain is just heavy stuff. You'll see bands at times. Here where we are outside of downtown, we've got another band about to come through downtown that'll be very heavy in just a little bit. We zoom on down and we continue with the same kind of banding here. If you're in Dublin, you're seeing mainly sprinkles now, but the heavier stuff is. And as you can see, the big picture shows the swirl, and this also tells the story of a hurricane where you can see the center of circulation here, and this is again the dirty side of the storm where we saw the tornado warning earlier that went from Houston County through Peach into Crawford, and we've got damage. We'll be showing you that in just a little bit, but notice on the backside subsidence here, so you're seeing a sharp drop off. Places like Montgomery, Alabama now clearing out what'll be a nice night. Places that had landfall earlier today, everything's clearing out now very quickly on the backside of the storm, and we'll see that as we go through the overnight hours. New numbers now coming in here. The 9 o'clock advisory, it continues to drop in intensity, 85-mile-per-hour winds. That is down from the 155. Can you even wrap your mind around that? 155-mile-an-hour winds that was coming on shore between Tyndall Air Force Base and Mexico Beach, Panama City area there. So awful, awful stuff. And now it's starting to kind of come on down, but it is still amazing that you have a Category 1 storm about to push into central Georgia. I mean, once you get below 74 miles per hour, then it's a tropical storm. We still got a ways to go to get there. So it's very likely that places like Cordele, Macon County, Dooley County, even maybe into parts of Houston County, could still have Category 1 hurricane winds coming in as we go through the next hour or so, unless it starts to just fall apart very quickly. But you can see for yourself. Yes, it has come down just in the color. You can see just in the convection, not as much bright red, more oranges and yellows here as things starting to kind of weaken in spots, but then you'll get bands like the one that's coming through now that blow back up. So in other words, there is weakening, but it's very slow. What is not so slow, the movement. This is the fastest it's been going, northeast at 17. You want it to continue like that, so any flooding threat will lessen some if you can get the storm on through and get some of the rain out of here. Once again, I'll touch on this briefly. Tropical storm warnings are out. Anybody in central Georgia can have tropical storm force winds. That is over 40, but we will see numbers 50, 60 to 70 the farther south you go, especially when you get into the pink shaded areas, which is where hurricane warnings are out here. Let's take a look at the track. Again, track is becoming less of an issue here, but I do want to show you at least the speed. This might give us a little bit of an idea that as we get in past midnight, 2 a.m., hopefully it's starting to pull in now to places like Wilkinson County, Johnson County, Washington, Lawrence County, and trying to pull on and getting the axis of this on bias. And even though the main heavy rain may start to leave as we go into the wee hours of the morning, the big wind will still kind of an invisible part of the storm where you're not seeing it on the radar as far as rain, but the wind is still out there. And eventually it will get pulled away as we go through Thursday on into Friday, and it'll be a memory. Here's a look at the RPM model, and what we're seeing is the eye of the storm. Here it is as we get into around midnight. Let's go forward here to around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Again, notice the side and the back side looks like it's done. It's over because the rain is on the front side, but the wind will still be wrapping very gusty on the back side here into 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. All right, I'm going to show you one thing and then we'll go over to Frank and Lori. This is a look at the high-res model, latest data that's coming in here now and showing as we go forward here. This is future view wind gust potential. There's around 9 o'clock or so, getting into around 11. These numbers have gone back and forth. We've seen Cordele at 75 mile per hour wind gusts. Here's a look as we get on into around 1 a.m. So this new run has numbers that are down lower again, but they fluctuate. Let me go back to that. This keeps jumping past that. Let's go right here. I'm trying to show you worst case scenario. There's 2 in the morning right there. When we go forward, notice how Dublin goes down to around 19 to account for the eye of the storm being there where it's quieter. Then look at the back side, going back to 50, 60 miles an hour as the eye pulls away on into 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. All right, let me take, hold on, I'm going to take this and then we'll go to producer Sierra, what you're talking about. I wanted to show you this quickly. This is a look now over Macon on the Skycam. If you remember when Irma came through, we had the benefit of it being daytime so we could see things a little bit better, but I think you get the drift here. It's going to be very similar to what was happening with Irma. Instead of all day long, this is going to be all night long. Okay, Sierra, tell me again who we have on the phone. Is that where we're going now? Okay, Ricky, Crawford County EMA, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
Hey, how are you? Listen, first of all, tell me what's going on there now.
Right now, we're getting a lot of wind and a lot of rain.
A lot of wind, a lot of rain. That's about what I figured. Now, of course, the next question is going to be with the tornado warning that came through earlier today. I know that the National Weather Service has to come in and actually look at that stuff to confirm, you know, tornado damage with a survey. But just from the pictures I've seen in parts of outside of Roberta there, it looks to be tornado damage with trees snapped halfway up and the damage and everything. What's the scene like out there?
Yes, sir. We strongly suspect it was a tornado as well. Again, we've got damage to a number of residents, power lines down, trees down, and again, it looked like they were snapped just as a tornado had gone either right over to touchdown in that area. Power's all out. We've got 231 residents without power right now.
Okay, that's power as of now. How big of an area is this with that tornado damage earlier?
It's about, from that specific area where it stayed on the ground, about a half a mile to a mile.
Okay, and that's outside of Roberta, is that right?
Yes, sir. It's about 4 miles outside west of Roberta.
Okay, and that's that storm that was originally taken off as a tornado warning in southern Houston County, really about 5 miles south of the fairgrounds. We were watching it on the Skycam. then went through Peach County, and we saw debris floating around on
Correct.
a video
We
from somebody
believe-
at Fort Valley State. Yeah, go ahead.
That's correct. We were tracking it all the way from Perry all the way up to Crawford County.
Yeah, and that's the same cell that kind of died off for a little bit. It looked like it was over and then flared back up, and the National
Correct.
Weather Service went back to a tornado warning on it again. So, yep. Okay, I'm talking to our producer here for a second. Okay, Ricky, listen, I appreciate it. It's going to be a long night, and if we need to get back in touch with you, hopefully you're available, but we understand if you're busy.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, guys, we're going to keep monitoring stuff over here. Of course, the wind gusts continue to climb up there, not just in Cordele or places down there, but everywhere as we're starting to get more and more with the eye of the storm coming up. Frank and Lori?
Thank you so much, Ben. And of course, we have Chief Meteorologist Ben Jones, Hunter Williams, and Austin Cheney on the weather beat. They have us covered, keeping us safe throughout the night. Of course, the wind, that was a really big part of the storm that we knew it was going to be blowing in.
Yeah, starting to kick up right now. And of course, Crisp County, that's what the guys have been talking about. Suzanne Lawler's in Crisp County, and they are seeing some very, very strong gusts. She joins us now to tell us what she's seeing right now.
Oh yeah, very strong, guys. Very strong. I'm going to step out here. This area, the Crisp County Sheriff Compound, the EMA is also here. You got to remember that there are buildings all around, so we're kind of insulated. But if I step on out here and show you just the rain is coming down with a fury, and so is the wind right now. Now, Sheriff Billy Hancock said that he thinks the eye is going to be coming over in the next 20 minutes or so, and he wants to keep all of his deputies safe. So he told them to shelter in place. Do not go anywhere, shelter in place, and stay safe. The EMA building is right over there, and we just visited it. Of course, they're taking a lot of calls right now. They're making a running list of trees. We did go to see where one tree had fallen. The Public Works Department had already cleared it, so they are out on the roads. Of course, right now, where we're experiencing possibly that eye, nobody is on the roads. It's kind of like we're going to take a break and let this storm just do what it's going to be. When we were out on the roads, though, we did see that a lot of pecan fields have taken a beating. I also saw a couple of cotton fields just submerged in water. We've seen this rain started about 4 o'clock this afternoon, a steady rain, and now it's been a hard rain. So just walking from one building to another, the water is about halfway up to my ankle. So that gives you some indication of where we're at. They've got shelters right now. The last count was about 35 people in those shelters. Frank and Lori, back to you.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Make sure you stay safe.
Oh, I know that stuff down there could get rough too. Don't forget, stay weather aware. Download the 13 WMAZ app. If you haven't already done so, conditions are going to change quickly, and this is where you can get the latest updates and the latest conditions along with any breaking news.
Okay, and now we're talking about power outages. Lots of them around, and we have, I believe, a map from Georgia Power showing a couple hundred people who are without power right now, mainly from the powerful winds we had during the tornado warnings earlier. But when we take a wider look, tens of thousands in the state are without power right now, and crews won't be able to head out to fix those lines, of course, until the conditions improve.
And of course, most of those in southwest Georgia right now, which is where the storm is coming through. As a reminder, do not touch any downed lines that you see. Doesn't matter what you think it might be. Electricity could still be running through those lines. Stay clear. There are, of course, counties with curfews in place in central Georgia. Ben was talking about a few minutes ago. You don't need to be out. So we're going to put them on your screen right now for those of you wondering, all right, is my county under a curfew?
Well, that's right. Well, Baldwin County, starting at 11 o'clock tonight, but really you don't need to be outside right now. That's when that curfew begins. No end announced for that one. Bleckley County, well, that already is underway right now. Crisp County, underway right now. Dooley County, of course, already underway, and that's going to go until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah, Lawrence County's curfew will start in a couple of hours at midnight. That'll run through noon. Pulaski County has already started. No end announced in that one. Sandersville, that's in Washington County. Their curfew begins at midnight. Macon County, where they've already seen some damage, as Ben was talking about, that curfew started about 2 hours ago.
And in Hancock County, 11 o'clock, so in a couple hours from now, and that's going to go until 11 tomorrow morning. And in Twiggs County, again, that one starts at 11 o'clock as well, ends at 7 in the morning. Really, you don't need to be out tonight. The conditions are not ideal for traveling. And, you also don't want to put these rescuers in harm's way, too. So, stay home, stay safe, stay with us.
Yeah, emergency crews, that enables them to get out at some point and assess the damage
Correct.
and start cleaning up, and they don't need a whole bunch of people out there gawking, looking around. All right, Ben, back to you, my friend, and this thing is just really starting to get cranking in here in central Georgia.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When I look at these wind gusts right now, we're at tropical storm force already from Unadilla down to Cordele. Macon earlier had 47, so that's tropical storm force. They're gusting all over anywhere from Macon southward already. And I say already because the eye of the storm is still at the bottom left of your screen at tropical storm force. What happens though with this storm, and we don't have any sensors right here that we're showing you, when that eye gets a little bit closer to Unadilla and Cordele, watch how that number is going to jump up like that. As soon as it gets closer into the actual direct hit from the eye wall, you can see it go from 40 something to 60 or even higher, just like that, as that starts to get in. So it's going to be something to watch here as we go through a little bit. So if you're looking at this going, 30 something, 40 something, not too bad. The eye of the storm's not here yet. But one of the first stops is going to be Cordele and Crisp County. And Sheriff Billy Hancock is on the phone with me now. Seems like, Billy, every time we have something with severe weather, it seems like we end up talking at some point.
It does. I don't know what attracts it, me or you one, but we're going to have to quit meeting like this.
I think it's that big rocket in Cordele is what it is right there. It's so beautiful.
Well, I can tell you that I call it the mothership, but
Yep.
that's for another day.
Well, and that's like an outer marker here for the first stop for Central Georgia with Michael coming in. I understand first from watching our sensor data here, looking to see what the wind gusts were, it dropped out. And I thought, oh no, what is that? And we're thinking, what power outage down there? And then it came back. So what is the story with power around Cordele?
Well, we're beginning to lose quite a bit. Just a few minutes ago, we had some pretty strong gusts. We had some gusts upwards of 52 to 56 miles an hour. And as that came through, we saw some transformers blow and some more power lines go down. We're out at the sheriff's office and the operations center. We've been on generator now for almost an hour here. And you're right, the eye hadn't got here. Our wind right now is still in a northwesterly direction, this squall band that we're in, but it's bringing down trees, it's bringing down power lines, it's bringing down poles. We've got a couple of trees that have fallen on some residents, and we're just trying to make our way through it right now.
Yeah, so maybe an obvious question, but anybody that be watching in that area, what would you say to them for the coming hours?
Yeah, let's just stay home, please. We're having a tough time as law enforcement and public safety, EMS getting around. In fact, we just suspended all EMS traffic here, and we've sheltered the deputies in place for a minute till this squall line goes through so that we can get back out.
Well, and here's the thing, too. I mean, the eye of the storm over the next hour that's going to come through there, you'll see those numbers, and that's fascinating that you've been seeing them jump over, 55 miles an hour. Once that eye wall gets there, it'll jump very quickly. You may see it spike on up around 70 or so for a little bit. And then if the eye, which is what the models are showing, kind of comes through Cordele, it may get really quiet there for a little bit and kind of calm down. But then the back side of the eye is going to come in, and then the winds pick all right back up again very sharply. So yeah, it's probably a lot of sitting around waiting time until at least that's through, but this could be hours out there. So Sheriff, I appreciate your time. We'll be probably checking in a few times as we go on through tonight. And of course, Cordele was one of the first spots that we knew would get hit. We appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, and everybody please stay in and stay safe.
You got it. Sheriff Billy Hancock there, Crisp County. So that's interesting. We're looking at the wind gusts on a computer here at 47, but of course with their sensor down there, they've got one that's kind of taking readings probably a little bit quicker than some of this model, that some of this data is, and so they're getting over 55 miles an hour. So again, those kind of numbers will continue toward the northeast. The whole weather team is here. We'll be here all through the overnight, through into tomorrow morning to keep you posted on what's going on. Hunter Williams is over there now in the Weather Center. What have you got, Hunter?
Yeah, Ben, well, you touched on the damage reports that we had sent in from Macon County, and that's where a lot of the reports have been so far. If we could take Max 2, we'll show you what's going on there right now. Again, already the reports of trees down and power lines down. So as we zoom in here to Macon County, again, where a lot of those reports were funneling in from, the center of the storm, it's still not here yet. It has not arrived yet in central Georgia. But what's moved through parts of Macon County is what I would say is kind of one of the, not the eye wall, but kind of the band right after that. So they got some very strong winds. Clearly that was enough based on the reports to knock down some of the trees there, knock down some of the power lines. You can see the bright reds here just a little band, and it's not the eyewall just yet, but it's one of those first bands right outside of that, so that clearly produced gusty winds, and that was enough to knock down trees and power lines there. We talked to the sheriff. It looks like that's a similar story in Cordele and Crisp County as well. So we're watching now as the center of the storm gets a little bit closer, and I'm going to keep looking through the National Weather Service chat, and we'll of course have all the latest on any damage reports. We will likely see more of those as we head throughout the rest of the night. For now, I'll head it back over to Austin with more on Michael.
Yeah, so I want to go and add on to what you were talking about with the radar here. Now that the storm is over land, we're getting friction involved in the storm. That's reduced the wind speeds at the surface, but aloft, those winds are still very strong. So the way we get those strong wind speeds back to the surface is through that heavy rain banding. So for those of you keeping track of the radar at home and wondering when you're going to start to get in on some of those stronger wind gusts on the order of 30 to 40 miles per hour, if we can flip back over to the radar real quickly here, I can point out to you where those reddish and orange bands do show up on the radar here. So right here, anywhere where you see this brighter color starting to show up on the radar, that is going to coincide with the stronger wind gusts this evening. The other good news that I can point out to you is that our tornado threat actually is starting to decrease. So we're in constant communication with the National Weather Service, and they just sent out a message that basically because the atmosphere is more stable right now and because the storm's starting to shift off towards the northeast here, we're getting out of that area that is most favorable for tornadoes. So the threat definitely not over for the night. We're starting to shift definitely more into that straight line damaging wind risk, however, as we go into the rest of the overnight hours. Ben?
All right, Austin Cheney, appreciate that. Yeah, I've been looking at some of those outer bands too in places that are, I've been kind of covering up here with the cart and myself. You're seeing some lightning actually in parts of Lawrence County, Cadwell, getting into Jeffersonville, Irwinton. This is still, as Austin was talking about, you got more stability coming in here, but still a little bit kind of squirrely out here on the outside edge. So we're going to keep watching that. Of course, we do have a tornado watch. Let's see if I can pop that up there for you. Which has all of central Georgia in it, as you might imagine, which goes until 2 a.m. So this is going to be because of things like this. Now, we had the tornado warning that was for southern Houston County. And again, we were watching this from the Perry Skycam from the fairgrounds, and we could see off in the distance, not touching the ground, but you could see a wedge and what looked like scud clouds, but they were kind of moving around. And then it followed from there as it went just south of the Henderson area and then into Peach County and right over Fort Valley State. And we have video that we'll queue up and show you in a little bit that shows debris lofted in the atmosphere from a viewer that was watching there. And you could see the cloud, again, not full touchdown, but you could see the clouds furiously moving around right above her head, and just debris, just papers and whatever, and leaves and stuff like that flying around. And for a little bit, you were able to see, there it is right there. This is right around Fort Valley State. Ariel Jackson, thank you for this video. Sometimes in situations like this, video is better than pictures because we need the movement. We get pictures a lot of hanging, scud clouds and things like that, but you can't really tell what they're doing. This gives you an idea that it may not be touching down, but that debris that's there, whereas it might not have been picked up at Fort Valley State, it could have been picked up farther toward the southeast and was still lofted in the atmosphere, because once it left there, we were able to look and see a debris ball on our radar, which means we could tell that there was actually material being lofted in the atmosphere 11,000 feet up. And so this was a good indication that at least we had rotation up high. Don't know if we had it at the surface at that moment. So amazing stuff to watch that at one point. And that's the reason why I was more surprised that we didn't see a whole lot around Fort Valley State. I saw a couplet there on our gate-to-gate shear there. In other words, where the rotation was really tight at 123 miles an hour there for a little bit, and similar numbers when it got on over into Crawford County, and that's of course where we saw that damage. That was over 100 miles an hour on that. So guys, more and more bands coming on through in the eye of the storm, getting closer and closer to Cordele now.
Waiting for those wind gusts to really pick up, and that flying debris can be so dangerous. Again, reason why to stay inside. Our Brett Buffington, he is live in Perry, and Brett, explain what you're seeing out there right now.
Hey, good evening, guys. Let's start with what we're looking at behind us, and that is the power. The street light, I should say. The good news here, the street lights are on. That means there hasn't been that high wind through here, bringing down the trees that are likely to come down here overnight. The power for most of the town of Perry is still on, but just to the southeast of where we are right now, about 1,000 customers, between 900 to 1,000, without power tonight. You can see here, it is raining off in the distance. The leaves are swaying in the wind, but we haven't seen anything very intense. We are at the EOC here in Perry in an effort to try and get information out fast. As soon as it comes in here, of course, they're passing it along to us. They have had some reports of trees down. Police here asking for people to stay off the road. I talked to the police chief. They're not expecting to get really bad here until late tonight, early tomorrow morning. That's when they expect to get those extreme winds. Again, the town of Perry, Houston County, under a hurricane warning tonight. If you can believe that, this far inland, expecting Category 1 hurricane sustained winds in some parts here tonight. That is not out of the question, and certainly gusts stronger than that. That is crazy in this part of the state of Georgia. Again, we're going to be here continuing to watch these conditions as they are expected to deteriorate as it gets later tonight, and of course have live updates throughout the night. For now, though, we're live in Perry. Brett Buffington, 13 WMAZ News.
Thank you so much, Brett, for the update.
I was right about that, hurricane force winds.
In central Georgia, you would never guess.
Due to Michael, Georgia National Fair, of course, obviously shut its gates today, but they didn't take the rides down. According to officials, many of the rides are rated to withstand tropical force winds. Of course, the fairgrounds were empty. Vendors were forced to shut their stands down as the winds and rain started to roll through.
And for some vendors who are sticking it out in Houston County and waiting for the storm to pass, these winds are quite fearsome.
Yesterday, when the rainstorm came and it was 15 miles an hour winds, it was kind of scary. So I can't imagine what 10 times or 8 times that's going to be like.
That's the thing, those winds are very scary. And another vendor says this storm is much different than anything else he has ever experienced before.
Of course, it eventually is going to make its way into Dublin and Lawrence County. And Sabrina Burse is live in Dublin to tell us what's happening there right now.
That's right, we're out here in Dublin. The rain is quiet, but the wind is anything but. Some of these leaves are rustling just a little bit. The wind gusts are moving in and they're moving out. Dublin PD was patrolling this street over here, Bellevue Avenue. As we get closer and closer to curfew, I'm seeing less and less cars on the streets. Right now, you see about 2 cars coming through this intersection. We got another one right here. But earlier, I mean, it was kind of, heavy traffic coming through here. But like I said, the closer we get to curfew, people are going indoors and trying to stay safe. Like I said, right now we are in the calm before the storm for Hurricane Michael. In Dublin, Sabrina Burse, 13 WMAZ News. Back to you.
Sabrina, thanks very much. Again, that curfew in Dublin, Lawrence County starts at midnight tonight, but of course, fortunately, a lot of people are already off the road right now.
It is good to see the quiet roads out there. Our Austin Love was out earlier today in Crawford County. We were talking about some of the damage we saw there from possible tornadoes. He has a look at what he saw.
And the power of Hurricane Michael is already being seen here in southern Georgia as we're in Crawford County. A tornado spurred by Hurricane Michael came through this area about 4:30 here on Wednesday. Just take a look over here. You can be able to see just the power of these winds as it just ripped through Crawford County. Be able just to see just this tree, thick tree, snapped like a toothpick over here. And then as we're walking over here, and this is also right in the front of someone's yard, you can see I'm just walking through mud and slush and just thick water, just puddles right through here as we turn our attention over to here. Just another tree snapped like an absolute, 2 trees snapped like twigs. This is the front yard of someone's house. Countless trees were taken down as the power of this tornado ripped through this area. And the sad thing is this is just the beginning. Michael is looking to be able to bring its full force here to the Macon, Georgia area just later today. But reporting here in Crawford County, I'm Austin Love. Back to you.
Thanks so much for Austin and for those really amazing pictures of those huge trees snapped, it's like you said, like toothpicks.
That's what Ricky Sharon said too. Flint River Estates Road. All right, downtown Macon, Zach Merchant is out and about. And of course, the wind's obviously starting to pick up in that area, and the rain continues to fall. Let's join him live.
Yeah, guys, we're at the corner of Cherry Street and Cotton Avenue right now. And as you mentioned, the rain, the wind starting to pick up just a little bit, and it's really pretty obvious here. The bands, you can see right now, photojournalist Ralph Nickerson is zooming in on this tree right here. You can see the rain coming down. Not too heavy right now, but we've been set up here probably about 20 minutes right now, and in that time period, we've seen 3 or 4 really big kind of variations of the wind speed and the rain intensity come by. Right now, we're at a little bit of a lull. But just a few minutes ago, the wind kind of picked up, and if you listen right now, I don't know if the microphone is picking it up, but the leaves are starting to whip around a little bit more. Rain picking up a bit. We can really feel the bands coming through. Another big thing sticking out right now for downtown Macon, I know it's about 9:30, just shy of 9:30 in the evening. Not a huge traffic time for downtown Macon on a normal day, but right now it's really a story of, I don't want to say being abandoned here by any means, but there is not a lot of traffic on the road. In the time we've been here, probably seen maybe 3, 4 vehicles go by, and one of them was a sheriff's office deputy's cruiser. Things right now, actually, if you hear it picking up a little bit in the background. As far as we can see right now, no damage in our part of downtown Macon, no trees down or anything like that. But the Macon-Bibb EMA is reporting a tree down over on Nottingham Drive. Of course, we'll keep an eye on that and everything else going on in downtown Macon. For now, back to you guys.
Okay, thanks so much, Zach, in downtown Macon. We were getting some video in, and we appreciate the viewers, of course, sharing video. I believe this is from Crawford County. This is damage from around 4:15 today in the Flint River Estates area of Crawford County from Jill Hortman Lewis. Looks like debris flew halfway into their pool just from those possible tornadic winds. Look at those pictures.
Yeah, that was the area that got hit the hardest, too. And, of course, that was those tornadoes that came in earlier today. Hopefully, the tornado threat, as Austin was saying earlier, starting to die down a little bit, but we don't anticipate those winds dying down anytime soon, Ben, do we?
No, we don't. I want to show you what's going on here now. Georgia National Fairgrounds and Agri Center in Perry. Take a look at this. Obviously, the wind is picking up there. We're seeing winds in excess of 50 miles an hour now, gusting. You can see with the flags. Some of the stuff that's been covered up here as they've been going through the day today, getting ready for this. Every once in a while, we'll watch these light poles just wag back and forth. And of course, you know, right over there, the big Ferris wheel is there. So one of the places we're keeping an eye on, as this is not even the highest wind yet. Also, let's see, new information coming in here. Chris Floor from Macon-Bibb County says we've got about 5 roads reported as closed and 4 trees reported down. Crews are not responding now because of the winds. They'll start rolling once it's safe. Says people should still report down trees and poles by calling, and this is the number for you if you're in Macon-Bibb, 478-832-6300. 832-6300. They should not touch any down trees because they could be entangled with wires, and that's one of the important things that we say over and over again. Don't go up and start messing with the trees. You don't know if there's a line in it, and you don't know if that line is hot. And that's where a lot of people get hurt or worse. Again, one of many sky cams that we're watching. I want to show you some of the latest numbers as far as wind gusts. Unfortunately, we lost Cordele a minute ago again. I know that they have power outages there, and I assume that the generator was coming back up, and then now we've lost that. So you have to just kind of go off of the averages here and say 54 mile an hour winds going on in Unadilla. It's at least that, probably closer to 60 as you get in Cordele right now. Also, when you look at this map, a little bit behind on some of these wind particles and some of the contour colors here. The eye of the storm is actually a little bit farther toward the northeast right now. And you can see that as I go on to this shot right here with the radar. And you can see the eye of the storm spinning now north of Albany. So it is approaching Crisp County now. So in Cordele, again, it may not be coincidence that we just lost that sensor with that band coming through right there. That might have been another lick, and I would assume that those winds would gust up very high right there. What we'll do is we'll watch Unadilla that has jumped up to 56, I believe, or 54 it was a minute ago, and see if that number jumps. Another band right here about to come through Abbeville. Rochelle, seeing that, is going to Eastman, just some outer banding, but this is where the big winds start right here, and it goes on back. The eye of the storm, what's left of it, is somewhere right along through Leesburg here. So this is about to move over into Crisp County and then continue toward the northeast. So these numbers will jump very quickly once we get in there, and once again, we'll see if we can get Cordele back. If not, then we'll at least see the numbers, even if we don't see it here. We're going to see it jump in Unadilla, Warner Robins, Eastman here in just a little bit as this gets a little bit closer. And again, these are wind gusts. The actual sustained winds are lower than this as far as the steady wind, but it's the gusts that we're concerned about because that's the stuff that comes in and that's where your damage is done on those things. We'll take a look at the big picture on the radar shot, and you can see the storm leaving as far as Florida is concerned. All that is done. Rain's gone too. Maybe still a little bit breezy as you get into the panhandle, but the big stuff is over and they're waiting for daylight was. Again, most of your rain and thunderstorm activity is out front, and we are seeing a couple of thunderstorms in Lawrence County right now, approaching Dublin in just a little bit. It's on the other side where it's wrapping around that it's quiet, and this is typical of a landfalling, weakening tropical system, that it starts to shut off here on the bottom side, and you don't see as much in the way of rain. And then sometimes it'll even start to shut off over here as well, and it ends up being kind of a comma shape right here as it comes on in. So flash flood warnings are out, which is exactly what you would expect. Again, flooding is something that we're going to look for tonight. It's not the main thing, but it is something to watch, and of course it goes hand in hand with the winds as far as saturated soil, and then the trees will fall over easily there. So as we mentioned, Macon-Bibb County talking about that with some roads closed, and this is just the beginning there. Let's see, we're looking at, we've had damage reports in Macon County with trees down, and again, that's following right along with where the eye of the storm is coming in. And here's the latest on the actual storm itself. Let me go to this right here. See if we can get the numbers to pop up for us. Of course, it's been weakening as we've been going through the day. Not that one. I wanted this one right here. Let's see if this will pop up for us. And here it is, 85-mile-per-hour winds, Category 1. And again, it's moving northeast at 17, so it's got some pretty good movement to it. And so again, as we can get anywhere from Crispin to Dooley County, Macon County, right in the arc right here, leaving Sumter County. Heaviest stuff now is north of Albany, approaching Americus now. And that's where you see the numbers jump pretty quickly as it comes in. This outer band right here, that's where we've been watching for thunderstorms to develop, where there was a tornadic threat a little bit earlier in the day on that northeast quadrant there. When you come in and you're getting spin in the atmosphere with some of those initial cells that first moved in the afternoon. And that's where we saw possible, likely tornado damage in Crawford County. Out there now, let me stop it here so you can see and talk about some of our eastern counties that are watching, going, what's going on? We're getting off and on rain. They're about to come through Dublin with another one. Same thing as you go up through Wrightsville, Sandersville, Irwinton, into Sparta. So just kind of hit or miss stuff for now. There's a rain band right now about to move through Jasper into Putnam. And again, as Austin was talking about earlier, you get some of those bands with the heavy rain, you're mixing some more winds down to the surface. So it starts to gust up a little bit more when you get to there. Here again is around the eye of the storm, approaching Lake Blackshear, coming up in a little bit. Sierra, Larry Brown, Wilcox County EMA. How are you, sir?
Hey, we hunkering down.
Hunkering down indeed. Wilcox County with Rochelle and Abbeville right now. We've seen some wind gust numbers that are tropical storm force. Do you know of any damage yet?
Well, we've had a few trees down over in the Rochelle area, and we've got some power outage right now. Other than that, we're starting to see some heavy rains here in Abbeville and a little bit of wind.
So are the power outages county-wide, or is it spotty?
Pretty much just spotty right now.
All right, so what's the plan for tonight? Do you have crews on standby ready for anything that comes in? Are you guys staffed up?
No, we've got crews standing by, you know, it depends on how heavy the winds get before, you know, we send them out or whatever. So we're just kind of watching that and using our best shots on that.
I hear you, Larry. All right, well, the main eye of the storm will be coming through over the next, in your area, if not through there, at least a little bit to your north. The next hour and a half, over the next hour and a half. And the wind should start to pick up there even more. You're probably getting wind gusts now, 50-something to nearly 60 at times, yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll check in with you later. We appreciate it. Larry Brown, Wilcox County EMA. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, producer Sierra, where are we going next? What was the next thing you said? Okay, we have video here from Crawford County. This is earlier from the tornado warning that came through. We only ended up with the one squirrely cell, but it was enough to do damage here. And of course, we talked about it moving through Houston County into Peach County and then into Crawford, which brought back memories when it was going through Fort Valley of when Katrina was coming through. Even though it was way over in New Orleans over there, we had tornado damage in Fort Valley from that. So that was from an outer band. And then we had tornado damage today, even though we haven't anything confirmed in the Fort Valley area, but we do in Crawford County. So more scenes like this as we go through tonight. Hunter Williams standing by over there. I can see that sky cam behind you there. And Perry, looking a little bit gusty out there.
Oh yeah, so we're looking live at Perry right now, and this is some really gusty wind that's moving through. Take a look at the sky cam right now. I've been watching this flag, and it was wrapped up around the flagpole. You see it in the middle of your screen about a minute ago. Looks like that has come free, but you can just see all over the place. The light poles, those have been swaying a little bit. Then there's the tent on the right-hand side of the screen. We've been watching that flap in the breeze as well. So we'll just kind of give you a tour of central Georgia. Let's take a look at Macon right now, where we had 41-mile-per-hour wind gusts just a moment ago, and that tells the story. The sky cam is just whipping around up there. And again, Macon has seen gusts up to 41 miles per hour, but still the center of the storm, what's left of the eye, is still well down to the south. That's the scene right now in Macon. We will just continue the tour. We've been watching the Houston Medical Center from the back parking lot, and there you go. You can see super heavy rain right now. That is in, you can see going down through the light beams there, and the trees in the parking lot have been whipping around as well. That's Houston Medical Center. How about Dublin? Let's see what's going on there as we adjust the sky cam here. And Dublin looking a little bit calmer right now, though I say that, you can see the trees whipping around there as well. I'll show you the radar right now, and we'll just kind of focus in on some of the strongest winds that are now moving in, as the center is now very close to moving in now to Crisp County. So we just talked with some officials there in Wilcox County. Here's Abbeville right there, and that is a pretty stout looking band that's about to move through. So they mentioned some trees down in Rochelle. So the band has already moved through Rochelle, and it is about to move into Abbeville. In fact, is probably doing so right now, and you could certainly see wind gusts upwards of 40 or 50 miles per hour, if not higher, in this band that stretches from Abbeville back up towards Pineview. So Crisp County, it's, again, we lost the sensor there, so we don't necessarily know the exact wind gusts, but safe to say that it's likely near or above 50 miles per hour. As you can see, the center, it's right here, and this area right here that I'm pointing to with the cursor, there's going to be tremendously heavy rain, and likely some of the strongest winds are embedded right in here, and that's about to move into Crisp County right now, into Dooley County as well. So we showed you the sky cam, what it looks like in Macon, where it's gusting up to 40 miles per hour. Those are not the strongest winds that we have right now. If I could just kind of draw a line right here, this is kind of the core of the storm at this point, and to the south of that line, that's where we're going to have the strongest winds, and that's continuing to move up further to the north. But now the very center of the storm is now about to move into Crisp County, very close to Dooley County as well, and some of the strongest winds will likely be moving into our area shortly. So that's an update with what we've seen on the sky cams and the radar. Ben, I'll throw it back over to you.
All right, yeah, just amazing stuff, especially taking that tour with the sky cams out there. There's been conversation here in the National Weather Service chat room about, want to know some of these places, what kind of wind speed they're seeing, because we're not seeing data. One of those places would be Americus, also Cordele, as we mentioned just a moment ago. Why is there no data? Well, clearly it's about what you would imagine. From the National Weather Service, observations are becoming scarce as equipment fails due to the winds, but our best estimates, at least in Sumter County now, are that about 50 to 70 mile per hour winds are ongoing with the stronger bands in that county right now. So whereas we're not able to see it, we're having to go off of estimates now because some of these sensors are failing, either with power outage or maybe they're getting damaged. So some of these numbers we have to just kind of take a guess on just by looking at Unadilla and this, drawing the inference as you go on farther toward the eye. You have to think that the number goes up. So I'm thinking we're probably easily 60 to 70 with some of those numbers. That's a look at gusts there. Back to the rain, and as far as the radar is concerned, the spin goes on. As Hunter was talking about, the eye of the storm still getting closer to Lake Blackshear right now, and I think you would see, if we could see Cordele's numbers, we would see that spike up a pretty good bit very quickly there. I want to mention again that we do have tropical storm warnings out for all of central Georgia. So anywhere in the orange shaded area, that means the potential is there for tropical storm force winds. That's anywhere 40, 50, 60 miles an hour with some of the wind gusts. What we're seeing mainly as you go in the northern part is winds gusting maybe as high as 30 something, but then it starts to get into 40 something from Macon, and then the numbers go higher and higher, and especially down here where that main core is starting to move in toward the northeast. About the track of the storm, just to show you that it's got some speed as we get on into around 2 a.m. or so, we may be looking at trying to get past Macon at this point. But again, once you see the rain stop and lift toward the northeast, the storm is going to look kind of funny shaped as we go through the next few hours, because it's going to be mainly rain on one side and quiet on the other, and it'll look on the radar like it's just over when it comes through. Well, what you'll see is you'll see the eye and the gusty winds there, as far as the sometimes calmer winds with the eye there, it'll move, and then the backside will whip around, even if you don't have rain there. And I can show you what I'm talking about here with the model, which shows us going forward how things look. See there, this is showing at 10 o'clock here in a few minutes the potential for hurricane force winds here from Cordele spreading up and down here. Tropical storm force winds everywhere else at this point as we go through the next hour. Then we go forward and you can see the numbers starting to go up. And you can see Dublin jumping to 65 maybe, over 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts in Macon. Cordele there with still an impressive number. And then we go a little bit farther in here and you can see the eye of the storm somewhere, if you look at this model, somewhere over Hawkinsville at this point. And it literally would be that thing, if you remember from Irma, where it'll come in, and let's say you're standing in Hawkinsville for a little bit, the winds could come down a pretty good bit until that part of the storm comes in, and then the backside here will begin to pick back up again. So you'll start to see numbers jump back up on the backside of the eyewall, which I say eyewall, it's not anything compared to what it was like when it came in to Florida, but this is still very impressive that this storm can keep this kind of strength going this long. There's around 3 in the morning right there, and that's a good point right there at Macon. Look at that right there. You may see times where it's kind of drops down for just a little bit, and then you go forward again on the back side, and the numbers can jump back up. There's around 4 or 5, and then the eye starts to move on in toward Augusta, and we're still looking at potentially 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gust if this model is right here, and then trying to drop down 6 o'clock in the morning on into 7, and then it's starting to pull away here as we get into 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock, and then slowly but surely trying to get back into something a little more than just, only like a little breeze instead of the crazy stuff. Again, the numbers on the storm, new advisories coming out all the time. We'll have some more new information coming up in just a little bit. 85-mile-per-hour winds, so a Category 1 hurricane still. And if you look at the Saffir-Simpson scale, I mean, to get to be a hurricane, you got to go above 74 miles an hour. This is at 85, so this is a very healthy Category 1 storm. We'll see on the next look how it's looking and see if it's even near tropical storm strength. But just, again, to start from a near Category 5 and to be now going on 9 hours almost since landfall, and it's still a hurricane as it's about to make its way into our area. All right, I think we're going to toss things on over maybe to Frank and Lori.
Yeah, it is amazing, man. You're talking about the storm that came on shore about 1 o'clock and is still churning away across South Georgia as a hurricane.
And would you? Yeah, that's the thing. Would you think in central Georgia we would be talking about hurricane force winds?
Hurricanes don't hit here.
No, not really. And you may be wondering, with all of the down power lines, these strong winds, what about WMAZ? Is there a chance that we could get knocked off the air?
All right, Chelsea Beinfor is live from our 13 WMAZ backup studio, should that happen, and that's at the Georgia Farm Bureau in North Macon, and we join her live.
Good evening, Frank and Lori. That's right. We are at the Georgia Farm Bureau up here in North Macon off of Bass Road. This is our backup facility, as you guys just said. If we happen to lose power, lose a signal at 13 WMAZ off of Gray Highway, this is where we will continue the broadcast from. I, of course, will be up here all evening until the storm passes, and if some situation like that were to happen, we would bring more people up to this facility. But we're going to walk out here to the parking lot and kind of show you what's going on. Again, we're in North Macon off of Bass Road at the Georgia Farm Bureau. The rain, not terrible yet. The wind, not terrible yet. I'm going to see if we can zoom on up into this street light over here to our left or right. You can see the wind is coming, or excuse me, the rain is at a slant, but we're standing out in it right now. We're not getting soaked. I mean, it's just kind of drizzling. It's a little bit of a heavier drizzle, but we have been out here for a couple of hours. Rain has been fluctuating a little bit. If you take a look at these flag poles out here in the middle of the parking lot, you can see the wind isn't really whipping through there yet. They're not slapping, flying in the wind. Then again, it looks like some of them might be a little bit wrapped around the poles, because now we're feeling a bigger wind gust, and there are some trees over here. Ooh, now we're getting sprinkled. Big wind gust just came through, and some of these trees knock some water onto us. But for now in North Macon, conditions don't seem to be particularly bad. Of course, we will be here at the Farm Bureau throughout the evening bringing you live updates. We'll toss it back to you guys for now in the studio.
Thanks so much, Chelsea. It is good that we do have that backup studio, so you'll have us throughout the duration.
All right, counties with curfew. Some are already under a curfew right now. Take a look right here. I do want to add one in because I saw one that was added. It would be Byron, which may not be on this, but it could be at the end, but that's 11 p.m. also in Byron. You see Baldwin starts at 11, Bleckley, Crisp, Dooley, they are already underway right now.
That's right. Lawrence County begins at midnight. Pulaski County got underway, about 45 minutes ago.
Washington County, the city of Sandersville, actually has a curfew that doesn't start until midnight, and it'll run through noon tomorrow. And also, don't forget, you just saw that on the air right now. We are being simulcast on Radio 2. I know a lot of you were calling in earlier wondering if we were going to be simulcast, and these are the stations you can turn to right now to get our coverage.
That's right. AM 940 WMAC 99.1, FM WDEN, B95.1 FM, and Z93.7 FM, Blazin 92.3 FM. And of course, don't forget to download our weather app so you can just really stay weather aware. Frank, you've been mentioning this is a quickly changing weather situation, and you can't have too much information.
Yeah, because like I said, power on in certain places right now. In the next 30 minutes or so, that could go down. The winds, as Ben said, they go back and forth, they kick up, and of course, a lot of heavy rain. And this thing is still, I mean, the eye, as Ben was just telling us, is not even to Crisp County yet, so it still has a long way to go.
But it is approaching our viewing area, so it definitely is on the way. And we haven't talked about schools in a while. A lot of schools on fall break right now. And a lot of schools have actually canceled school for tomorrow, some actually for the rest of the week.
Yeah, probably a wise idea, too. So a lot of different things happening right now as we continue to go through the evening. One constant, we can hear the rain beating on the roof right now as it continues to fall, and that's going to come and go. Most of our reporters in the field have been talking about the winds will pick up, the rain picks up, and then it dies down. It gets calm for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it starts to kick back up again.
If you depend on buses in Macon Bibb, just let you know, no service tomorrow, but they are planning to resume service normal schedule on Friday. Here's some video and some pictures actually from Crawford County. Now, we're not positive that a tornado moved through, but certainly does look like it.
Yeah, Ricky Sharon, who Ben talked to earlier, Crawford County EMA director, said, yeah, from everything he saw, it seemed to indicate that there was a tornado. Of course, the National Weather Service still has to come out, survey the area. They are the ones that officially decide whether or not a tornado was in that area, but just based on what Ben saw earlier on the radar and the pictures we saw right there, certainly appears that way.
Okay, like you said, that we have crews all over Central Georgia keeping you covered. Zach Merchant, he's actually on Nottingham Drive, I believe, with a downed power line. Zach, what you got?
I think a tree fell there.
Yeah, guys, we just got word of this downed power line behind us. We got a flashlight here, a couple big lights behind the camera. I'm going to turn this on so you can really take a look at what's going on back here. You see a tree far in the background here blocking Nottingham Drive, and you can see this power line down here and another little kind of tree debris over on this end as well. This is completely blocking Nottingham Drive. We're probably 6 blocks deep into Nottingham Drive from where Gray Highway and the Kroger there is. So we're about 5-6 blocks back in here, completely blocked off Nottingham Drive. And if you look, it might be tough with the camera to see here, but there's a home where this beam is pointing right now. No power over there, and looking back into Nottingham Drive, there is just complete darkness, nothing going on here. We're gonna take a look up at the transformer here a little bit just to get a close shot in here. Photojournalist Ralph Nickerson behind the camera, he's gonna get a close look at this transformer that looks like it got knocked down by this tree here that came down. Like we said, complete darkness down the road here, everything pitch black. Or in a tweet, Macon Bibb EMA said they are not responding to calls for debris at this point until the worst of the storm is over. So we're going to get out of here as well, get to an even safer position, but we did want to show you what's going on here. We're going to send it back to you guys in the studio now.
All right, that's Zach Merchant live again in Nottingham Drive, just about a mile here from the station. It's an older area, a lot of those mature trees, and obviously that was one that fell right there.
And speaking of downed trees, if you are in the Macon Bibb area, you see a downed tree, do not touch it. Bibb County actually wants you to give them a call, 478-832 6300, again 478-832-6300 to report those, because a lot of those trees can bring down power lines. They could be live, and you can get hurt if you touch them.
And Chris Thor says they're not going to be able to do anything with them. At least they'll know where they are until conditions get better. Of course, Georgia Power, latest numbers I saw said about 65,000 people are statewide without power. Of course, a lot of that's going to be in the southwestern portion of the state. And there you see the map right there. But pretty much power outages scattered around the state right now.
They really are. They really are. And, you know, when we talk about this, you know, it's a quick moving storm that's slowly weakening, still really strong though. And of course we want you to stay inside, but once, you know, daylight comes, things calm down. And if you do have damage to your home, you're going to want to try to take care of that. And I was touching base with the Georgia Insurance Commissioners, their website a little earlier. They have some tips for protecting your property before crews can get out there to actually fix it. So say, you know, your roof got blown off, or there's some damage to your roof, maybe you know, a tree has come down. They want you to secure it, maybe put a tarp over it, some plywood. Make sure that you keep receipts of anything that you go out and buy yourself. Then you can, you know, turn those into your insurance company. And I think a really big thing, and we see this unfortunately every time with severe weather, you know, there's scammers out there. They're going to come by, they're going to want to try to fix your house, fix your roof or whatever. Always check with a Better Business Bureau, okay? They have a list of, you know, the good guys out there, the ones that are reputable, and because you really don't want to get taken advantage of in a situation like this.
All right, Crisp County's been experiencing some power outages. As Ben said, they lost the sensor down there. Suzanne Lawler is live in Crisp County right now with an update on the current conditions.
I'll tell you, these conditions are just furious right now. We are sheltered under an awning in between buildings that are very sturdy, and still these winds are pushing me around. The sheriff, Billy Haroldson, just came, and he was talking that there was an apartment complex in trouble with the roof, so he went out there to see it. That would be Sheriff Billy Hancock, and a tree fell on him as he was driving. He was driving that car just a few minutes ago, and a tree fell on him. Sheriff Billy Hancock said he's okay, he's fine. He dispatched other units to the apartment complex. They said they have numerous trees down right now, numerous power lines down right now. The public information spokesperson, Haley Little, just sent out a text that said, please shelter in place. Do not go out in this. Do not even go out your front door. And what the sheriff told us is, hey, we haven't even seen the eye of the storm yet. So guys, back to you.
All right, as you said, yeah, that's why you don't need to be, especially in those areas down there. Things are probably a little bit quieter in Dublin, Lawrence County right now. Let's check in with Sabrina Burse, and she can give us an update on what she's seeing.
That's right. The rain is a little bit quiet, kind of a steady sprinkle out here, but wind is the story. Very, very gusty out here. It's coming and it's going. We spoke with EMA Director Don Bryant. He says that there were a couple of trees down a little earlier, but they were able to get those cleared out. Like I said, curfew is coming up in just a couple of hours. The streets are pretty quiet right now. Like I said, you don't see really any cars on the streets right now. But like I said, it is pretty quiet right now. People are going to head in right before the rain and the wind really start to pick up. In Dublin, Sabrina Burse, back to you.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Yeah, a little quieter there, but you can really track this storm by watching that rain and the winds. You can see where it's headed and where it hasn't touched yet.
Yeah, you can see, obviously, it's where Suzanne is right now, which is in Crisp County in the Cordele area. Goodness. It has not gotten to where Sabrina is in the Dublin-Lawrence County area. And I think Lawrence County curfew starts at midnight,
midnight
there,
that's right.
and it'll run through noon tomorrow, but obviously there's no real reason, hopefully, for people to have to be out right now. And that's probably a good idea.
And it seems like people are heeding that warning. I mean, the streets are very quiet, so that is good. And this is, you know, in a different event than Irma, because remember with Irma, and I remember, you know, vividly driving into Macon, driving into work while those winds were whipping up. This is an overnight event, so, you know, that presents its own set of challenges.
Indeed it does, and of course it's going to continue to develop too, and it looks like it'll be sometime maybe even by noon tomorrow before it finally exits, and by that time it should go. All right, I think Chief Meteorologist Ben Jones is back ready to go right now. He's been gathering gathering some information. All right, Ben, we'll toss it back to you.
Okay, we're going to do some Skycam touring here in just a second. I want to show you here the Georgia National Fairgrounds and Agri Center. Look at these flags back here. This is really starting to punch the core through right here. You can see some of the covered up tent areas, the camera getting jostled around. Here's some of the light poles here, and watch the wind coming across these flags right here. This tells the story. This coming in just a second ago, according to Georgia Power, as it continues to spread farther toward the north now, over more than 77,000 people without power. This coming in actually from the National Weather Service. They're assembling some of this data here. So 77,000 without power according to Georgia Power so far as the storm moves farther toward the north. Hunter, what do you want to show me next? Which one we're going to do here?
Over to Houston.
Houston County. Okay, this is going to be Houston Healthcare looking down toward Watson Boulevard. At times it's like this where it looks kind of calm, and then you'll see a big band and a gust come through, and it's hard to even make out what's going on. The trees, the flag, and then the blowing rain will come on back in, and you'll just see bands of this coming in. This is looking now downtown, down First Street in Macon. Very similar stuff to what we saw with Irma when it came through. Of course, it was daytime then, so we could see things a little bit differently than we can now, but I think you get the picture here with the kind of wind that's coming through and the rain. Of course, we heard a little bit earlier that there are some road closures and trees down in parts of Macon Bibb. They're not going out to attend to those right now, waiting for the core of the storm to come on through. Here's a look at Dublin right now, and this is one of the places that will probably be a little bit later than some of the places to the west, obviously, because the storm is heading in that direction. But if you remember from Irma, this was an intersection right here that we showed a lot as we were seeing these traffic signals really get tossed around, and that's probably a place that will show a similar scenario as we go on through the next few hours. This, at times, when I look out here, is starting to pick up, and you can see some of the flags back here in the distance starting to wave. And this is some of the lightest wind that we have out there right now. The heavier stuff is still back toward the west. All right, let's go back to the Perry Skycam just for a second, Hunter, if we can. And maybe we can widen out. Earlier we were having some zoom issues. I'm not sure if you're able to zoom out, or if not, we can at least maybe chalk to your left. And I want to see how it looks. Okay, that's good. Yeah, we can do that. And then come on back. Got to let the camera focus itself for a second. It's hard when all these raindrops get on there. I wanted to take a look, as we zoom out some more, take a look at that Ferris wheel back there. And then over toward the clock tower too. As we've been watching these flags, those are usually a good indicator of all the wind that's coming down. Of course, the lights are off on the Ferris wheel here. Of course, as we've been talking to the folks out there, they're rated for really gusty winds. I actually heard from one person talking about it that was close in there that, that like a Ferris wheel here can actually withstand up to 120 mile per hour winds. So probably, you know, this is obviously a lot lower than that. So everything hopefully should be okay as this comes on through. But again, as we're trying to focus things up, the camera just tries to jump on these raindrops that are out there. So again, so far, more than 77,000 people without power. All right, I'm going to roll this back in here. We're doing some computer updates here. There we go. So now we'll jump back on to what's going on with the actual numbers as far as the wind gusts are concerned. And let's go to that. Here's a look at 54 miles an hour still in Unadilla here. And that, okay, and that's a number that, again, we don't have data in Cordele now because of either damage or power outage down that way. So you have to take that number, and you could easily say that, if not more. And watch these lines here, all right? So you're going to see things really jump up. Again, we'll probably hit some 60, 70 mile an hour wind gusts down there in just a second. Here's a look at the radar right now, and I'm going to put it here for a second. Actually, Hunter and Austin, take a look. You can see the Lake Blackshear area right now with the eye of the storm starting to come on in. And you can see on the backside here where it's, again, rain is not as prevalent here, but you get the idea of where the center of the storm is right here. So Cordele right now, as we were talking to Suzanne a minute ago, probably getting some really heavy rain and gusty winds about to come in if it's not happening already. And again, it happens in lulls. You have a little brief moment where maybe not as much is going on, and then you'll see things pick back up once again. Okay, now we're going to Macon County, if I'm correct there, Sierra, or we're Deputy EMA Director in Macon County. How you doing?
I'm doing real good. We here at the EOC seen a lot of gusty winds, a lot of rain. We just lost power here at the EOC, but our generator kicked back in.
So losing power there as well. We're hearing that as a trend. As we talked to Billy Hancock a little bit ago in Crisp County, they lost power a little bit earlier in a bunch of Cordele. Same thing, I'm sure eventually we'll hear here in Dooley County. Have you had any damage with any of the winds that have been coming through there?
We've had some reports of trees down. In fact, one of our deputies actually hit one of the trees over in Oglethorpe. Good news, he wasn't injured. But right now, we are under a curfew started at 7 p.m. this evening till 8 in the morning. So I'm sure we'll see some more as when the curfew gets lifted, probably see a lot more tree damage.
All right, that's interesting there, Joe, when you talk about with the deputy hitting that tree, and then we were just showing there a minute ago in Crisp County where the tree hit the sheriff's car down there. So these first responders that are out there tonight, obviously in harm's way, trying to make sure everything's all right, checking on things, and of course, it gets back to circling the wagons again, right? As far as people being on the road, what would you say to them tonight?
Stay inside, wherever you're at. Do not get out. This is very dangerous. And like I said, we do have a curfew in place, but we pretty well stopped all. Well, we actually have stopped all the as far as fire department responding for trees. It's just too dangerous for anybody to be out. So our advice is stay indoors, stay where you're at, and wait till this thing passes, and then be extremely careful on, there are going to be down trees that we don't know about yet, and just be careful. It's dangerous.
I hear you. All right, Joe Weaver there in Macon County. Okay, now we're going to go over to Telfair County, an area that is not seeing the brunt of the storm yet, but is seeing some of the outer bands there. Who are we checking in with here, Sierra? Let's see. Lee Connor. Lee, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you, Ben?
Doing all right. I'm sure things there are, not as bad yet as it is to the west when you chalk on over to Dooley and Crisp County and even Pulaski and Wilcox now. But what are you seeing there in Telfair?
We're starting to see the wind pick up. Light rain to moderate to heavy rain. A lot of wind gusts coming in. But we are seeing some power outages starting to come in the county, and a few trees are starting to fall.
I was going to ask you that, even being on the outside edge so far, so power outage is already a thing that's happening. Are you seeing, traffic signals, things like that going out?
Right now we're just receiving reports of power outages in the homes at the moment. The cities are still running good, and the power is still in the city municipalities.
I'm trying to remember, going back on the list, is Telfair County one that's got you have a curfew there, or is that?
We do. We implemented it. It's from 12 a.m. to, we're going to run it till 8 p.m. tomorrow night, but we're going to reassess at 10 a.m. in the morning.
Well, explain to people, Lee, when they're talking about, because there are people that are watching, they'll be like, curfew, what's the point in a curfew? What is the reason for that?
The curfew, the reason Telfair County implemented a curfew was just for the citizen safety. We don't want citizens out in the middle of a storm or even afterwards until we have time to clear the roads, make sure they're safe, make sure all the power lines are clear. It's for their safety. It's not because we want to be mean to them or anything like that. It's just for their personal safety, and it's there to protect them as citizens of Telfair County.
All right, Lee, we appreciate it. Hope for good things for you all tonight, and we'll check back in with you hopefully later on tonight, okay? Be safe.
Yes, sir. I'll be here.
Thank you. Hunter, what you got? You raising your hand over there?
Yeah, got some new wind speed reports in. Got a report of 53 miles per hour just a while ago in Vienna. So let's take a look at the radar now, and we'll talk about what that means as far as the structure and what we've seen so far. So Vienna, obviously right here in Dooley County, and we had that report of 53 miles per hour sent in a while ago, and now the center, what's left of the actual eye of Michael, is moving into that very area, into Dooley County. So we had the report of 67 miles per hour right here in Cordele, and now the report of 53 a while ago in Vienna. So that gives you an idea of what the winds are in this neighborhood right at the center of where Michael is, and it's now moving into Crisp and Dooley counties. So we've had that estimate of anywhere between 50 and 70, and now a lot of the reports that we have coming in from the National Weather Service are confirming that. So although some of the sensors are going down in that area, obviously because we have very strong winds, 50 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts are very likely in this area where the strongest winds are now moving in again to Crisp and Dooley counties. And as the center of this storm starts to now move into our actual area, a lot of what we've been dealing with, especially as far north as Macon, has been kind of the outer bands and the peripheral. But now kind of the center, the compact center part of the storm now moving in. So I'll draw a line here, and this is kind of the center here where we're getting the strongest winds and the heaviest rain. So that's extending kind of between Warner Robins and Perry, points down to the south. So that will continue to move further to the north and east over the next several hours, and the wind gusts in there are as high as 50 to 70 miles per hour. We're seeing that through parts of Crisp County and Dooley County. Obviously, this system will continue to weaken as it continues to move over land, but those are the type of wind speeds that are capable at the central part of Michael that is now moving into our area. So for now, it is Crisp and Dooley counties that are seeing the impacts, but that eventually will move further to the north and east. We're talking Wilcox, Pulaski, and eventually maybe southern Houston. So that's an update of what we're seeing for now. I'm going to throw it back over to Austin now.
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. So as we continue to take a look at the radar here, the main threat that we've been dealing with, like you said, so far today has been this widespread rainfall. And I'm going to call a little bit of an audible here. Can we see if we can pull up some of those rainfall totals and maybe query some of those totals back down south and to the west? So as we take a look at this, we're dealing with the wind speeds here, but what's going to become more important as we start to accumulate all this rainfall is it's going to make the soils very soft and saturated. So even though, like check out just to the north of here, 6.7 inches, then north of Albany, just to the west of Cordele, they're looking at 3 inches of rain. And all this is coming down very fast. So it's not going to have a whole lot of time to just soak into the soil. And it's going to make it easier for these wind speeds to be able to topple these trees. So we're dealing with the rain all across central Georgia right now. As Hunter pointed out, the center of circulation back down here, closer to Cordele, that's where we're seeing those wind gusts on the order of 50 to 60 miles per hour. As this continues back up into our area, we'll saturate the grounds further, and then we could see some more power outages. Right now, only looking at about 3,500 folks without power down there in Macon County, and improving a little bit up here in Bibb County with just 340 customers out of power, but this number likely to be increasing in the hours ahead.
All right, Austin, I appreciate that. Taking a look at some of the wind gust numbers as I'm trying to move a camera around here. This is going to be the Macon. We can go probably on over to Max 2 and see if I can pull this up. I'm going to the other side of the Hart Tower here on Max 2. And we can see the camera shot that we're getting here. Is this on Max 2? Is that what we're on right now? Okay, all right, I'm seeing something on a different screen here. Hold on a second here. That's Max 2. Hold on, stand by here just for a second. All right, we've got about 48 different computers going on at one time. Here we go. That's Perry there. So now we'll go from here and power up Macon there. There we go. See, that's about to come onto your screen here. And what I'm doing is, well, usually you can get a shot there with what's going on in the outside of the hospital there, but it looks like the flag, maybe that's been taken down. So sometimes the flags will kind of give us an indication of, well, they're traffic lights. Yeah, there you go, Collinsworth. Yeah, I can get an idea of this, because we're in the dark here, and it's not like it was, well, it is like it is with Irma, but it's not like it was as far as visually being able to pick things out. We have to kind of go where the lights are and to be able to see how things are going. Frank, you're better with this than I am. Is that hemlock on that side over there? Frank?
Pardon me?
Hemlock over on that side there?
Hemlock, yes, that's exactly
yeah, okay,
what
that's what I was thinking. I get confused with some of the streets around the hospital over there. So we're on top of the Loose Heart Center right there. All right, so as we zoom the map out, the screen out, I want to kind of give you a little bit of a tour here. And again, this is going on around downtown Macon right now. And we'll just kind of chalk a little bit here toward the left. And again, mainly what you're seeing is rain coming down. It's hard to see the wind situation here because we are at night. And if you get dizzy, I apologize, but I'm moving us around back over here to First Street so that we can look down the street. That usually, if we can get in a street light or something, we can get a little bit better shot about the winds coming down. Again, as we mentioned a moment ago, Reports of in the Macon area already of some roads that are blocked, trees down in spots, power outages. But again, like we've heard with some of the other EMA directors, according to Chris Floor with Macon County, not responding to that right now out of caution. It's, you know, there's no point in trying to go out there and work on any of that stuff right now when it could get worse than that. Frank, what have you got? Power lines down at Vineville and Pierce. Yeah. All right, so that's a busy intersection in Macon. So if you were one that had to be out tonight, maybe you had to go to work anyway or wherever it is you had to go, Vineville and Pierce, power out in that area. I'm not sure how wide that is going to cover. Vineville at Pierce, that's very busy there. You got Pinona coming in right there, and I'm not exactly sure how much it covers going either way from there. So that's
but they're not going to respond till later.
Yeah, so that's going to stay out. So that's trying to get this thing to focus, and I can't do it. That's going to be the trend as we go through tonight. Once you hear a power outage, that's the way it's going to stay for a while. It's not going to come right back on. So if you've got battery or flashlights and candles and stuff like that, then go ahead and fire those up, because as we saw with Irma, there were some people, it was days before you could get the power back on. Okay, so that's about the best I can do with that camera right now. I'll try to work on it again in just a little bit. I can't talk and do that at the same time. All right, so let's go on to from here to the wind gusts and see if we have any new data coming in. Again, we've lost some of the sensors. It looks like we've lost Unadilla now too, unfortunately, and that's the one that was showing us 54 miles an hour. So I think that kind of tells the story of what this kind of wind can do, is when you start losing data and these sensors in all these places, that tells you that's some strong stuff coming in, either with wind damage or with power outages. Once the sensors start going, and we saw that with Irma in some spots too, you kind of just, big stuff's coming in. We don't have numbers now, but we have to guess that it's somewhere 60 to maybe 70 mile an hour wind gusts. We did have a confirmed one, I believe it was at Billy Hancock's place in Crisp County a little bit earlier, that was just a little bit ago, 67 miles an hour. Again, remember when we were in Irma last year, the top speed that I remember seeing was in Macon that afternoon, and I think that was the top. Well, we know now in Cordele, we've just got one a minute ago, it was 67. So we're talking about Irma plus some with this storm that's coming in. And again, it's in the overnight hours, so that's not the best time for this to come in. Let's see, Dooley County, we mentioned a little bit ago, Vienna with a peak wind gust there for a little bit, 53 miles an hour. All right, let me go over to Austin. You've got your hand waved. What you got, man?
Yeah, so I'm over here trying to, fish for some good news for our viewers as we go into the overnight hours tonight. Me and Hunter Williams going over the data here, and I've pulled up the water vapor imagery. And so what you're looking at on this map is the water content in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. Where we have all these greens and whites showing up, that's a very moist environment. Then further back out to the west, we start to see these browns showing up on the map. So if we zoom out just a little bit here, I can show you something that's working in our favor. We saw this dry air on the backside of the hurricane. That's due to both sinking air on that side of the hurricane, but also some dry air trying to wrap around. And if we can start to get some of this closer to the center of the storm, that could help be a weakening mechanism as we go throughout the overnight hours. So we'll keep an eye on that over the next few hours. Ben?
All right, Austin, that's good information right there. You can see that dry slot punching in there on the south side, so that could be helpful in trying to bring this thing down to its knees here. Of course, it's still a very slow, weakening storm. It was nearly a Cat 5 when it made landfall around 1 o'clock this afternoon near Panama City. And the latest numbers are right here. It is now down to an 80 mile per hour sustained wind. Again, you've got to get down below 74 to not be a hurricane anymore. So this is still a Category 1 hurricane. And just as Austin showed, you can see right here in Dooley and Crisp County, a little bit of a dry slot punching in. We'll see what that does to maybe weaken this a little bit faster. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. But of course, the winds continue. Where are we going now? We're going, I heard some Frank and Lori here. We're going back over to you for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, we like the bit of good news, guys. That's always good.
Thanks so much. Okay, so of course we have a lot of curfews, some already in effect, others going into effect around midnight. Here we have Baldwin County starting at 11 o'clock, Bleckley, Crisp, Dooley already in effect, Lawrence County starts at midnight, Pulaski County already in effect.
Yeah, there are more counties that are continuing to be added. Sandersville starts at midnight. Macon County, we heard from them. That's underway. Hancock starts at 11 tonight. Twiggs at 11 tonight. And Byron will start at 11 tonight until 7 in the morning. We also heard from our friends in Telfair County. They're going to start at midnight till about about tomorrow night, but they're going to
Right.
reassess tomorrow at 10 a.m. But those are the counties with curfews. And obviously, everybody, of course, being encouraged to stay off the road tonight unless you have to be out there.
It's all a matter of safety. Brett Buffington is in Perry, and actually we're going to go over to him just a little bit later. But now let's take a look at the power outages. This is Georgia EMC. Statewide, it is reporting that 70,000 customers are without power. So this is Georgia EMC. Of course, we've got Georgia Power that is also working on some outages, but 70,000 Georgia EMC customers statewide without power.
All right, Brett Buffington, as Lori said, is in Perry, monitoring the situation right there in Houston County. They really haven't gotten the brunt of the storm, but they are feeling some effects right down there. Let's toss it to Brett.
And certainly the wind is picking up here this evening. Look behind me, you can see the fire department.
Whoa.
They are busy here tonight. Well, we are very close to what we were talking about earlier, that 35-mile-per-hour sustained wind speed at which they will not be going out to 911 calls here. They are asking people to stay off the roads here in Houston County, especially in the town of Perry, and stay inside. You can see they are already feeling the effects of Hurricane Michael. The wind is here, the rain is here. But again, not anything like what they're expected to see here overnight. We were talking earlier about the street light. The street light here, it is still on, meaning the power here is still on, but already here in Houston County where trees have started to come down, there are reports of power outages. The rain certainly picking up as those bands get stronger. We're getting closer to what was the eye wall of this hurricane, and expected here as it comes through this part of the state to bring with it wind gusts in excess of 75 miles an hour. That's certainly what they've seen down to the southwest of us, and as this storm comes whipping through here tonight, they are certainly preparing for plenty of trees coming down. It will be a busy morning once this storm passes through here as they get out and try to get roads back open, and certainly power crews get in place. But you have to think tonight as this wind is whipping, certainly if the 911, if the rescue crews can't get out, that means the power crews aren't even going to get started working until those roads get back open sometime early tomorrow morning. And you can see certainly working tonight are the first responders again, at least until those sustained winds here in the town of Perry get over 35 miles an hour. And they tell me in the EOC at that point, they won't be going out anymore, because who goes and rescues the first responders if they get in trouble in the middle of one of these storms? Again, they are preparing for a hurricane to pass through here in Houston County tonight, and certainly encouraging people again to stay off the roads. Certainly you have to think here where they host the Georgia National Fair, there are a lot of guests in town. Hotels here, certainly a lot of them are booked up. We talked to a few earlier who came in from out of state, even one of them, and told me that they'd never been in the middle of a hurricane before, and they certainly didn't expect coming to central Georgia, to the Georgia National Fair, that they would be in a hurricane here. But certainly they are bracing for that over at the fairground tonight as vendors sit in hotel rooms tonight and they ride out this storm, hoping that the booths they set up, especially the ones outside, will be there tomorrow morning. Certainly they are very nervous here watching the storm as it makes its way through our area tonight. They and the people here inside their homes watching the storm blow through here tonight. Of course, we'll be here as the conditions continue to deteriorate. They're expecting the worst of this after midnight here in Perry. As that comes through, of course, we'll share what will likely be dramatic images here through central Georgia with you as well. For now, though, we are live in Perry tonight. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Brett, we continue to see the nature of the storm. It was calm for a little bit, and all of a sudden the wind gusts would kick up and the rain starts kicking up. I do want to mention a school closing at the latest Mercer University. Macon, Savannah, and Columbus campuses will now be closed tomorrow. That's Mercer University, Macon, Savannah, and Columbus campuses are closed tomorrow.
And for a complete list of school closings, of course, go to our website, 13WMAZ.com. We have a full list. They started calling in yesterday, so go ahead and check there and see if your child or your student's school is open tomorrow. Probably will not be. Now, we are simulcasting on several different radio stations. If maybe you don't have access to a TV, hopefully a radio, this is where you can find us. AM 940 WMAC, 99.1 FM WDEN, B95.1 FM, Z93.7 FM, and Blazin 92.3 FM is where you'll find us.
Yeah, radio station simulcast. A lot of folks were asking that earlier. Of course, don't forget the app too keeps you up to date as the storm continues to change. And also as the wind and rain continues to beat down all across central Georgia. Download it right now and you'll have the very latest information and get alerts as they come in.
believe we're going to toss it back over to Chief Meteorologist Ben Jones. And Ben, what are we seeing now? We're seeing in these live shots how the wind is really starting to pick up.
Yeah, we're in the Georgia National Fairgrounds and Agri Center. I wanted to show you here as we look toward the newly completed baby barn here. Obviously, folks in there keeping an eye on the animals, I'm sure, as this is coming through. And you can see these sheets of rain and wind as they'll come across every once in a while. It gets pretty crazy looking out there as this comes through. This is, again, you're familiar if you just went to the fair this week. This is right there where the baby barn is. As we go farther over, there's the big Ferris wheel there. I'm seeing some blue lights flashing in the background right there. Not sure what that is. And then we go more into the midway here, and we can check in on some of the flags. And you can see the sheets of rain again blowing across through the parking lot here. These are where some of the winds here are around 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts. So this is definitely tropical storm force winds. Some of them at times can be getting pretty close to low-end Category 1 hurricane force. Let's see. It looks like we have some emergency responders there near the Ferris wheel right there. So again, there are folks out checking on things, making sure everything is all right, but you can follow the trees here and look and see what's going on. I'm sure there will be some stuff that wasn't tied down, probably blown around in spots. Let's take a look here now at the Macon Skycam here on Navicent Health. I was looking at it a little bit earlier, and it was just all over the place like this just a little bit ago with some of the gusty winds coming in. And of course, some of these winds have been over 40 to 50 miles an hour there. Hunter, what you got, sir?
Yeah, got a new report again out of Crisp County and Cordele of a wind gust up to 63 miles per hour. So we're seeing a lot of these numbers that are upwards of 60 miles per hour as the center of Michael starts to move in. Let's take the graphics though, and I want to talk about kind of what we can expect moving forward for a moment. Obviously now we are still in front of Michael, so the center is still in the process of moving in. Now what will happen as we head overnight and into tomorrow morning is the center will track directly across us and eventually move out. Now a lot of the rain is in this area up here, out ahead of the main part of the storm. And eventually by tomorrow morning, the center, which you see right here, will continue to traverse all the way across and it will move out. But that will not be the end of the breezy conditions necessarily. Now, the strongest winds are obviously going to be right there at the center. But look back behind the storm as well. It's still breezy even down into parts of the Florida Panhandle where, of course, landfall was earlier today. So even as we head towards tomorrow morning, tomorrow at midday, we could still see pretty gusty winds, upwards of 30, maybe even upwards of 40 miles per hour. So that's something to keep in mind as we move forward in time. Obviously, the ground will be very saturated as we continue to see, in many cases, inches of rain move through tonight, in addition to the tropical storm force winds. So even as late as tomorrow, if some of those trees have been weakened or some limbs are on the verge of going down, it will still be breezy even after the center of the storm moves through. So that's something that we'll be watching, again, moving forward in time. We'll go back to the current radar right now. And again, the center of the storm now, I would say pretty much into Crisp County and Dooley County as well. I read that report a moment ago. There's a Mesonet weather station in Cordele that measured a gust of 63 miles per hour. So it's still a Cat 1 hurricane, and you know we could still be up gusting in that neighborhood, upwards of 60 miles per hour, close to 70 through parts of Crisp County into Dooley County as well. So some of the places that are really getting hit hard right now, Cordele, we've shown some live shots there throughout the night, and you can see just how windy it is there. Vienna, one of those areas where we had a wind report over 50 miles per hour. And remember, that was before the center even moved through. So those numbers have likely come up. And then we do have some information from Unadilla. So we'll go back to the wind gust map right now and we'll see what their latest number is, up to 54 miles per hour. And you can see at this point, pretty much through the bulk of that purple shading, those are winds over 40 miles per hour, wind gust over 40 miles per hour. So that's enough to take down limbs. We've shown you even as far north as Bibb County. We've had trees and power lines go down. Our Zach Merchant was showing you live shots there. We've had the reports from Macon County, and we've had the numbers from Dooley and Crisp sent in. So that's an update, again, on what we're seeing. Ben, I'll throw it back to you.
All right, Hunter, appreciate that. Let's go on over here, Max 2. You can see the rain coming on in as we go on down into Cordele. The center of the storm, again, is down there. Some of these Skycam shots are amazing looking, and this is going to be the one from Houston Healthcare right now. And off and on, sometimes it is amazing to see the rain going sideways here as it comes down in sheets. This is running down Watson Boulevard. You'll see the trees just kind of bend over for a little bit and they'll come back up. So it's not a constant thing, but it's the gust. That's what we're talking about, not the sustained winds that just like a steady thing. It's those gusts that'll just jump up 20, 30 miles an hour from what the constant wind is and then go right back down again. So we'll see it come in waves like this. Still seeing some cars running up and down through Watson, like that one right there. Hopefully they're going to be careful as they're out and about tonight. Let's see, check in on what's going on in the, you can see there's some of it right there, just picking up some of these big gusts that are coming through right there. Again, that's running down Watson Boulevard. Again, the thing about a tropical system is too, these winds will shift. So you'll see them come from, coming in from the southeast, and then they'll start to come in from the east. Next thing you know, they're coming in from the northeast, and then the west, it changes as the storm continues to pass by. So everything will kind of change and then go back the other way. And I've always had a theory, I don't know if it's right or not, but that these trees, you start to bend them one way for a long time and then you start to twist them another way and then finally they get slapped on that back side. And I always wonder if it kind of, if you're loosening a fence, things will come on over even after the rain has gone on the back side of the storm. Here is a look at Dublin now. And again, this is a spot that is not seeing the heaviest stuff just yet. And of course, if you look at that, it is a beautiful, calm night there because apparently the camera is frozen. We may have lost that one. Let's see. Nope. There we go. We can see some of the traffic lights blowing around just a little bit here. The heavy stuff is not even close to here yet. Let's go back to Macon, downtown again. And as we look out toward over downtown, again, you're seeing the same thing, just jostling around here with some very gusty winds. Again, it's like what we saw with Irma last year. So in saying that, that means that we're going to more than likely have damage like we saw with Irma last year with just multiple trees, tree limbs, power lines down in a bunch of spots. Back over to Perry again, and there's a look at the, again, the Ferris wheel, just kind of watching things as they come through now because there's not a lot of forecasting going on now. It's all what we call nowcasting. Now it's just like the thing is here and it's just watching it as it comes in, and we're trying to give you these sites out there because it's, not good to be out in it, so we're trying to at least show them to you with a camera that we have here. Again, there's the baby barn there, and you can see the wind whipping around. And these cameras, I mean, they're pretty sturdy. I've noticed on normal days, they don't get jostled around very easily, so it takes pretty good wind to kind of knock them around like this. And you can really see some of these. I'm trying to get you into some of the lights here so you can see the bands of rain as they come on through. So that's a look at Perry. Let's go back to the radar now and see what's happening with the, first we'll stop with the wind gust here just for a second. And again, we've lost data in some of our southern counties there because of either damage or power outage. Unadilla left a little bit ago, now it's back showing 54. Some of these numbers too, I'm not sure how quickly these things are updating. It's when the observation site grabs data. It's not constantly all the time. In between observations, those numbers could be higher. And we're not seeing them. And I have to imagine with some of the damage reports and everything that we're hearing that some of these numbers could easily be 60 to 70 as that was what was in the forecast. Let's go to this radar just for a second and then I'm going to go over there. I just want to look quickly at the eye of the storm coming in and of course Austin touched on this a minute ago and you may have more on that in just a second here, but you can see a little bit of that dry slot punching in right here in Cordele. So they're getting right into the eye of the storm. Austin Cheney, what do you have, sir?
Yeah, so if we can go back to those wind gust observations for a second, we can talk about those observations. I believe they're taken every 5 minutes. I don't know exactly how often they're ingested back into our graphics here, but the thing I wanted to mention, I know we're seeing some wind gusts on around 54 miles per hour right now in Unadilla, 40 out towards Eastman. There's always in the southeast a lot of structure, a lot of trees, and that could actually block some of the wind from getting to these sensors. So right now, it's not out of the question that areas south of Macon are starting to experience stronger gusts on the order of 60, closer to 70 miles per hour. They just might not exactly get towards the sensors. The strongest wind gusts that we're going to feel across central Georgia tonight are going to be in very open areas. If there's some farms or some open fields, that's where we'll see those stronger gusts tonight. That's what they'll verify more in the 60 mile per hour range. Ben?
All right, Austin, appreciate that. Let's go on over to Hunter now. What do you have, sir?
Yeah, so we've been talking about the wind all night, and the rain is something that we also need to pay attention to. Of course, that's kind of the secondary threat. But we'll take the graphics, and I'm going to show you what's called the precipitation rate. So this will look kind of like what you see on the radar, but this shows you how much rain is falling and the rate at which it's falling. So when you see rates like that, 2 inches per hour, even as far north up into Macon County, something like 1.5 inches per hour, this is very, very heavy rainfall. And of course, you expect that with a tropical system, but that's the reason why they have the flash flood warnings that are in effect for many of our counties. And although this is not the main threat, the wind is the main thing that we're concerned about. You don't want to turn a blind eye to the rain either. On any other occasion, if we were seeing widespread amounts of 3 inches of rainfall, that would be the main story. But since the winds are here, we're talking a lot about that. And it's the 1-2 punch. It's not just the rain, it's not just the wind, it's both of those things together. So we've showed you where the big rainfall rates are, the very heavy rain. Here's a look again at the latest wind numbers. When you get the ground really saturated with rainfall rates that are over 2 inches per hour, it's easier for the trees to go down. So that situation will probably continue to develop as we see more and more rain as we head through the rest of the night. Remember, this is going to be a while. We have hours more of this, so the rain will continue to fall. The ground will continue to be more saturated, so trees will likely go down. Power lines could go down, so more power outages can be expected. That's an update on the rain that we're seeing right now. Ben, I'll throw it back over to you.
Yeah, some of these sky cams have been looking around, just moseying around the area. Some of these are amazing. Of course, there's the one in Perry again, but this one here at Warner Robins, of course, every time I go to take it live on TV, it doesn't show it as much, but sometimes these trees are just doubled over here. And you can see down into the parking lot there. Sometimes looking into the lights kind of gives you an indication of some of the big swaths of wind that'll come through. And again, they'll die off for a second, and you can see them kind of spraying across the parking lot here. So one of many places here that the winds are really starting to turn up even more and more. All right, so I think Frank and Lori, I think we're going to come over to you for a second.
Yeah, you guys were talking about the heavy winds. Just got a picture from my friend in Rhine, Georgia, and he says the wind is really gusting over there right now. From Aiden's store, he sent me a picture of, so the wind's kind of picking up all around central Georgia.
And of course, with that wind, the rain and everything, we want you to stay inside. There are a number of curfews out there, and we've actually added a few, and so let's go ahead and take a look at that. We have in Sandersville at midnight, their curfew begins there. Macon County already under the way. Hancock, Twiggs, and Byron, that will be starting in about 30 minutes from now. Trutland County is now added, and that's going to start at midnight.
Yeah, friends in Soperton right there in Trutland County, and that will run until noon tomorrow. Power outages, let's start with Tri-County EMC right now. This is as about 286 people without power, or meters is how they measure theirs. So that's right now Tri-County, about 286 folks without power there, or meters.
Let's go ahead and move over to Georgia EMC. Statewide, as of about an hour or so ago, 70,000 customers without now actually there we go, up to 75,000 customers, so that number is growing.
Georgia Power also reporting outages too, and you can see these are outages all around the state, and of course that number will continue to go up, as Hunter was just talking about too. Several more hours for the storm is just now passing through. Over 100,000 people, producer Sierra tells us, Georgia Power customers without, so it's starting to add up as you add up all these different groups across the state.
A lot of folks without power tonight. And then, of course, Flint Energies, and we're told more than 2,000 Flint Energies customers are without power tonight. So we know we have a lot of customers there here in our viewing areas. So, of course, with all these power outages, you got to wonder, what about WMAZ? Are they going to be able to keep the lights on?
Chelsea Beinfor is at our backup studio in case power goes out there, and she is at Bass Road, the Georgia Farm Bureau, right now inside that studio. Chelsea.
Good evening, guys. It probably feels a little bit weird to see me inside of another TV studio here, but that is because this is our backup facility. Like you just said, we are inside the Georgia Farm Bureau. They have a fully functioning studio up here. I'm at one set. There's another set over here. You know, plenty of cameras, plenty of monitors, plenty of power. So, you know, we always tell all of you at home to be prepared. Make sure you have a backup plan. Make sure you have a basement or a closet to be inside of, or a shelter to go to. So this is our backup plan. Of course, this is not meant to scare anybody, but we want to be as prepared as you guys are. So again, we are at the Georgia Farm Bureau. We are off of Bass Road in North Macon, and intermittently between these live shots, we've been going downstairs to check conditions outside. We were outside 20, 30 minutes ago. Rain had finally started to pick up since we had arrived here around 7 o'clock tonight, but wind gusts up in North Macon We're not anything crazy yet. So again, we're inside the Georgia Farm Bureau studios. We will be here in case there is a power outage or a signal loss at WMAZ. I will be here to keep the broadcast going, of course, to keep all of you updated and informed as we would work to move more people here or get the power or the signal back at 13 WMAZ on Gray Highway. For now, live at the Georgia Farm Bureau studios, Chelsea Bimeford, 13 WMAZ News. Back to you guys.
Definitely great to have that backup studio.
Indeed, and of course these storm will continue to ebb and flow right now. I know the folks in Crisp County apparently may be getting some drier air eventually through that way, but they have been under the gun. And as Ben's been talking about, this storm, amazing how strong this has continued to be. It's still, I believe at the last report, is above hurricane strength. It came on shore around noon today in the Florida Panhandle and is now zipping through Crisp County well into central Georgia and continues to truck with winds still over 80 miles an hour. Looks like we're getting some tree has fallen on the power lines near City Hall. Main Street will be closed for a while. Is this in, where is this at now?
That's in Byron.
That's in Byron, I'm sorry.
That's in
right
Byron.
there. Okay, so in Byron, you've got a power line down near City Hall. Main Street will be shut down for a while. And again, the crews just can't get out there right now because conditions are still bad.
And also remember, in Byron, a curfew is going to be in effect, and that begins at 11 o'clock. Yeah. So, you know, if you're outside, which I hope you aren't, make sure you get inside by 11 o'clock. You know, you bring up a really good point. When this hurricane made landfall, 115 miles per hour. That is incredible. And then it is still moving at this late hour, still a Category 1, I believe, 80 miles an hour. And Ben was saying it has to drop below 74 miles per hour before, you know, it loses that hurricane, you know, label, if you will. So, you know, we still have a ways to go. And, you know, we're just seeing these strong winds and seeing how damaging they can be.
All right, Ben, back to you now, and you continue to update us on information and the wind gusts and everything that's happening right now.
Yeah, it is amazing to think that it was at 155 mile an hour sustained winds earlier in the afternoon, and of course that was when it made landfall. It was, once you get about 156, you're at a Category 5, so it was that close to being a Cat 5. Again, as we were talking earlier, you're seeing maybe a little dry air trying to push in right here. We're going to wait and see if that kind of does anything to the overall structure. Normally, if this thing were out over open water, it would probably kind of go through an eyewall replacement cycle for a little bit where it would kind of close itself back off and then sort of reform the eyewall. Over land, you're going to just see deterioration here. So we'll just have to see what it does to the overall structure of the storm. But as far as the wind gusts, again, we're seeing them come in. As Austin was talking about a little bit earlier, you know, they're supposed to be about every 5 minutes or so. Still seeing some of the same numbers for a while here now. So I have to assume that either the pipeline to get it into, you know, from these places to the graphics is not exactly picking up. Every once in a while you'll see Milledgeville just checked in. Unadilla has gone offline and back on at least once. So that number could be frozen in time right there. The numbers should be much higher than that, and I assume they are, because you can look right here at Macon gusting at 43. Warner Robins, how long has Warner Robins been sitting at 35? Has that one been sitting there a while? It seems like that number has.
It has been lower. It's been lower than Macon the whole time.
So I can't fully trust these numbers when you're looking at some of the stuff that's out there. I mean, again, here is looking out over, just from experience, some of these wind gusts look higher than 35 miles per hour as they've been coming across here. This is looking over from Houston Healthcare down onto Watson Boulevard right now, and you can see these sheets of rain and the wind just pouring through here, and it's just relentless like this, and it will continue. So sometimes it's that wearing down effect over and over time that eventually does the damage, and trees and limbs and all that just finally just give up after a while. You can see those trees pushing right here. So here's a big gust that's coming through right now. Some of this has got to be higher than 35. So been watching some of these numbers, looking at the gust map, going back to it, waiting to see if there's a change in there. And just not seeing a whole lot with the numbers. Eastman showing up at 40 mile per hour wind gusts. Take some of these and bump some of that up a little bit, especially when we're not getting numbers from Cordele. This one's stuck. I think this one's probably stuck here too. I know Macon has been changing. Butler's out. Americus is out over there. So we're losing data in some of these spots. Let's go on back to the radar shot here now and kind of get an idea of where the eye of the storm is. The rain that's coming in now, if you're just now seeing it in places like Dublin, And that's the beginning, and it's not going to stop until the whole thing comes through. When you were out in front in places like Sandersville, Wrightsville, Soperton, you're still getting kind of waves every once in a while on the outer band. But the heavy stuff now is moving in, and now it's going to just continue going. So again, Cordele, we'll check in a little bit later with Billy Hancock because the rain will cease there probably in the next half hour or so as it's going to move on toward the northeast, but the wind will still continue to be a force. And again, we don't have data from there. We do occasionally have from the chat room. Oh, it looks like I'm back. Are you back on chat room now too, Hunter? Looks like we lost that for a second. And it looks like I'm back in now.
I'm in.
All right, Austin's in. I hear him over there. Okay, all right, so 2 out of 3 meteorologists in the room are in the chat room, so that's good. I'm trying to catch up on some data. We got kicked out there for a second. Just lost data for just a little bit, but it looks like we've got that back. Okay, they did put out a little statement. Center of Michael approaching I-75 near Cordele. So that is just kind of a statement for Bleckley, Crisp, Dodge, Dooley, Houston, Macon, Peach, Pulaski, Sumter, Telfair, Twiggs, Wilcox till 1 a.m. That just means you're in the center of the storm coming on in those places that I just listed. Crisp County, whoa, yeah, that one just coming in here. A wind gust of 76 miles an hour in Crisp County right now. Peak wind gust measured by a UGA weather station at Hardin Farm in Araby. Am I saying that right? I never knew how to pronounce it. Is it Araby?
I'm with you. Yeah.
Every time I pass down the interstate, I don't know how to say that. Where are we going? All right, let's go to Suzanne, where we're getting wind gusts of 76 miles per hour there now. She's in Crisp County. Suzanne, are you okay?
Yeah, we are okay, and I'll tell you, we were feeling those wind gusts of 76 miles an hour, and that's why we decided to come inside. This is the emergency management hub right here. Now, if we go just a little bit over to your left, you can see Sheriff Billy Hancock over there meeting with his people. You know, if I could describe what the conditions are like out there, it's just like the wind just hammers you and hammers you and hammers you, and the wind and the rain is sheeting, just like it's just going nonstop. Sheriff Hancock told me that out of 12,000 power meters they have in Crisp County, 10,000 of them are without power right now. So he is also kind of agreeing with Ben that, and they're getting their briefs from the National Weather Service, that this is going to last for another hour, these really harsh punishing winds, and then the eye will come through, or the collapsing eye, and then it'll drop down to tropical storm. So he has all of his deputies in place, sheltered in place, just taking it easy, taking it safe right now until they can go out and assess the damage. And the sheriff did tell me that he is worried about a lot of damage in Crisp County. Lori, Frank.
Thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, we were watching just those punishing winds all throughout the evening. I'm glad Suzanne was able to get inside because it has just been torrential down there.
And of course, continuing to move across the viewing area too. All right, let's take a look at some video we have from earlier. This is on Nottingham Drive. It's kind of the east portion, about a mile from the station off Gray Highway for those of you familiar with the area, and that knocked down a power line earlier. Zach Merchant was out there, and this is the scene right there. And this tree came down a couple of hours ago. And of course, this is what we're telling you. This is what you need to stay away from. Do not go anywhere near this right now. And there you see the tree right there. So that is on Nottingham Drive here in the East Macon area, right off Gray Highway.
And we have rain here from Hawkinsville. This coming in, I believe, from one of our viewers. You can see and hear. Listen to that. Just that punishing wind coming down. You can see whipping the tree limbs back and forth. And, we have talked time and time again that, wind and straight line winds, how damaging those can be. So thank you so much for sending in that video. And, if you do get a chance to get some video or some pictures, as long as it's safe, go ahead and download that to Your Take tab. And that'll give us a chance to either Frank or I or our meteorologists to share them on air.
Yeah, right. Of course, that's Hawkinsville, Pulaski County, and you still figure they've got a while to go then before the strongest winds maybe get through there. Crisp County, probably the first place where it's going to start to die down. But they have been under the gun for quite a while right there as the storm continues to roll through and will for several more hours before it finally finishes up. All right, Ben, you got something for us over there?
Yeah, just checking the chat room here for just a little bit. Again, as we mentioned just a minute ago, in Crisp County, south of Cordele there, with a wind gust of 76 miles per hour. So that is amazing stuff right there. That is still hurricane force winds going on right here. So the models were right on that it could still be Category 1 hurricane still coming through. That's what this is. I mean, you think about how many hours ago that was. It came through Panama City, and it's still a Category 1 hurricane floating through our area right now. So there's tropical storm stuff, and then this is on a different level right now to have that kind of stuff coming in. Also, as we talked about places to the north, all through here right here is kind of the main area getting hit. Houston County, Perry, a storm report from emergency management here at around 10:30. Multiple trees reported down throughout the county in Houston County, including at least 2 trees on homes. So we're hearing that that's in the Perry area there. And again, that's in addition to other places that we've heard about with damage. I believe Macon County was one of those areas, obviously in Crisp County. So it's going right along with where the track of the storm was going to go. Let me see if we have... Well, you have that another advisory coming up in just a little bit. I don't know if we have any more new data yet, but at 11 o'clock we'll get some more new information here. Again, a storm that has been coming down in intensity, but is not doing it very quickly because it started as a near Category 5 hurricane. It was just on the edge of becoming a Cat 5. And now on the scale, 5 is the highest. I mean, once you get there, I mean, it's crazy the kind of stuff it can do as far as damage. It's moving northeast at 17. And the sustained winds are still at 80 miles per hour until we hear something different here on this next advisory. It might actually come down a little bit. We'll see, although we're still seeing some health in there, even though with a little bit of dry air trying to push in. So maybe it drops on down to tropical storm strength next time around when we check on it. But at least as of now, here going in toward 11 o'clock, amazing thing to think. Now, you could see it sometimes if you could have a storm maybe coming in from the Atlantic. Maybe you could still see it kind of being a hurricane in parts of central Georgia. That's a long way to go from Panama City down there to come up through the panhandle of Florida, through southwest Georgia, over all that terrain, and still be a hurricane. I mean, that is amazing right there that this thing is still looking at that. We're not even at tropical storm strength yet. And tropical storm stuff can do a lot of damage. That's what we're talking about with Irma. You know, Alberto in 94, although this is not a flooding type situation like that, although we could have some flash flooding. This is just amazing just to see the overall strength of the storm. It came in as just a perfectly symmetrical storm that just was as healthy as it could be when it came on shore. So it's just taken a while for this thing to wear down. Austin Cheney, I see you waving over there. What do you have, my friend?
Talk about it's pretty rare to have a hurricane, especially a major hurricane, that deep into the state. I think you'd have to fact check me on this, but I think I remember this correctly. Prior to this, there's only been 3 other major hurricanes in the state of Georgia, and then the last major hurricane to move through the state of Georgia was back in 1898. So you have to go all the way back to the 1800s to find a major hurricane move through the state of Georgia here. Still dealing with the dangerous situation across middle Georgia tonight, central Georgia tonight. You see this heavy rainfall starting to push up off to the northeast here, and as Hunter and Ben have been talking about, this heavy rainfall kind of going to precede the strongest of wind speeds here. So that's going to saturate the grounds, and then once you get those 40, 50, maybe 60 mile per hour wind gusts moving up here across parts of central Georgia, then we have the potential to down some trees. So we'll continue to track on over that. Hunter?
Talking about the center of this storm tracking directly over top of us. So let's take the graphics again and we'll show you the center is now directly over Crisp County, and a very interesting note from the National Weather Service. So the center directly over Cordele right now, this was a few minutes ago, and the pressure in Cordele, the surface pressure down to 976 millibars, which is amazing to see something like that this far inland. I mean, Austin, that's just an incredible stat to have a major hurricane reach inland into the state of Georgia is just incredible. And we are still, as we've been mentioning, seeing these gusts that are up to potentially hurricane force, especially across parts of Crisp County where the center is moving in. I want to show you this. The markers that you see on your screen are actually wind damage reports that we have sent in. And it's good to visualize this because a lot of the reports are in this area right here, obviously where the center is moving through right now. So it's going to keep moving off to the north and east as we head over the next several hours. So if you just trace that forward, you can see that likely the wind damage will continue to expand further to the north and east as the center continues to push through. And that's now happening. Amazing. We have the center of the storm that is now pretty much directly over Crisp County, which is just amazing to think about. We'll go back to the wind gusts now. And again, some of these have not really been updating. I think Austin had a great point there in that gusts above these numbers are very possible, as a lot of these have been kind of stuck. The Macon station, I do think, is updating. 43 mile per hour wind gust, I think, is a good assumption in Macon. And again, that's enough to take down trees and limbs. And the thing is, the strongest winds have not really moved into that part of central Georgia just yet. So we'll go back to the radar, and I've been watching some of the banding here. And this is another one of the amazing things when you have a hurricane that has moved inland, as you see these tropical banding, that takes place over the land. So you can pick out some of these darker red little lines in here, and those are bands with embedded likely wind gusts that are going to go above what you're seeing, the numbers that we're showing you. So you could hit a 50 or higher likely in some of these bands. And I'm seeing one of those set up now in southern Crawford County into southern Bibb. So I'm thinking places like Rutland, then eventually into Roberta. This kind of smaller scale banding could move in there. And that is kind of the initial onset of the core of essentially of what's left of Michael right now, as that's going to continue to track directly over top of us here in central Georgia. Ben, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Hunter, I appreciate that. That's good analysis right there and amazing stuff to be over Crisp County like that. Look at Warner Robins right now. As you can see, the stuff just coming down Watson Boulevard. This is again on top of Houston Healthcare, and just sheets of rain and wind coming through, and we're seeing some impressive wind gusts going on here. Not just there, but as we go over to Perry, I wanted to show you this, and this gets almost it's blinding at times where you can't even see anything when it really starts to kick in against the baby barn right here. So again, the camera will just kind of go nuts, shaking around. And as we go to the south of that is where we're going to find, as we get into Dublin County, EMA Director Kenny Calhoun on the phone with me now. Kenny, how are you?
Good under the circumstances.
Well, you're kind of right there in the core of all this stuff down there. What's it looking like?
Well, we've had a good bit of rain so far, and the wind is beginning to pick up. We've had already a good number of trees reported down. We have one confirmed tree that fell on a house and pretty much destroyed the house. No injuries, thank goodness.
Well, that's good.
We have some power outages already and some power lines down, and we have suspended all of our operations until, unless it's a life or death situation.
Yeah, I'm hearing that from a lot of folks. You know, once the damage comes in and happens, then it's like, you know, we'll go back later to try to get out there. It's just too crazy out there right now to try to do anything about it. I'm looking here on the radar shot on Max 2, and we can see that the core of the storm is rolling right over your area right there as you were talking about the winds picking up. I'm sure you're seeing some gusts like we're seeing in Crisp County right now, where we're getting one a minute ago of 76 miles an hour. Well, a Category 1 hurricane starts at 74. Do you have any sort of, since we're losing some of those instruments, do you have any instruments around you like that can pick up wind gusts?
No, not any that I've got in contact with at this time. We may be able to get some information in the morning.
I hear you there. All right.
Recorded information.
Okay. I don't remember from the list. Is Dooley one that has a curfew tonight?
Yes, from 7 a.m. this afternoon from 7 p.m. this afternoon till 7 a.m. in the morning.
Okay.
And depending on the damage, there could be some extension to that in some areas.
Right. And I would imagine still, even at 7 o'clock in the morning, it still could be a little bit gusty there. And then like you say, I mean, if you've got power lines down in some spots and it's still not safe, you may look at extending that, right?
That's correct. It's just going to depend on how much devastation the storm leaves behind.
Well, let me ask you, Kenny, have you ever seen a Category 1 hurricane roll through Dooley County?
And no, I have been in this position and serving Dooley County for nearly 40 years, and hadn't never had anything like this.
Yeah, we've had tropical storms, but the fact that this is still a hurricane is mind-blowing. It really is. Kenny Calhoun, thank you from Dooley County. Sounds like you're busy back there. I'm going to let you grab that. We'll check in later. Again, as we look at the line here of sort of bands coming across, heavy rain bands, heavy wind, yada, yada, the thing we've been seeing, and this is where we're starting to see the rain shut off a little bit on the backside, but still very windy. Austin, sir, you got something?
On over to the satellite imagery here. It is nighttime, so we don't have visible satellite imagery, but we still have water vapor, which looks at the water vapor or the water content in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. And earlier in the newscast, we showed you some of this dry air starting to try to wrap back into the core of the system. And if you think about a tropical system, the fuel source for a hurricane is kind of in its name. It's tropical. It needs all that warm, moist air. Has plenty of that when it's back out over the water, but once it moves over land, it loses that because it's moving over land. And now once you also factor in it trying to bring some of this dry air back in from the western side of the hurricane here, that should help it to weaken. Now, I do want to point out this is going to be a very slow process. As we mentioned, we had a Category 4, almost a Category 5 hurricane make landfall in the Panhandle earlier today, and it was still a Category 3 storm as it moved on into Georgia. So this has been a process trying to eat away at the core of the storm for some time now, able to finally get it back down to Category 1 strength, and we'll continue to see it slowly weaken over the next couple hours, but still expecting those wind gusts around 50 to 60 miles per hour overnight tonight.
Austin, I appreciate that. New advisory information coming in right now. It has weakened some more, but get this, maximum sustained winds 75 miles per hour. So it's still a hurricane. That is amazing. I was expecting to get here for the 11 o'clock advisory and maybe to drop down to tropical storm. This is, I mean, some of the models were showing this, but when we were watching it, we were kind of scratching our heads going, could it really be that a hurricane could really still last that long? And that is the case. Let's see if it's caught up here on our graphic yet. Yes, Category 1. So, and it's picking up speed too, fellas. We're looking at 20 miles per hour out of the northeast. So getting a little bit of a punch here as this is going to keep going, and it doesn't hurt my feelings that it wants to get on out of here. 75 mile per hour winds. Again, if you go to 74 or 73, really, you are then at a tropical storm. But then you're at a high-end tropical storm. Then you're at, think about it in reverse. When you get to 73, you're thinking, man, we're almost to a hurricane, and this is a strong storm already. So clearly there's still going to be plenty of tropical storm force winds, but right now we still have hurricane force winds going on in these southern counties right here. So again, we mentioned earlier that, and I'm trying to keep for record, last year with Irma was in Macon. We had the 60 mile per hour wind gusts, which I believe was the tops. And this one in Crisp County, it's 76. That's amazing. Also, look behind me right here, just to show you these outer bands still have some squirrely in them right here. Places like Savannah, where a tornado warning is going on right now. So this outside edge right here, still potent, still getting some rotation on the outside of the main rotation here. Flash flood warnings, by the way, are what's going on in the green. What that means is it happens in a flash. So we're going to get a lot of rain at too much in a short amount of time, and so that's going to be a problem there. Overall flooding, if you wanted to kind of say like, well, what do you think of, something like this, like flood of 94? No, we're not looking at that. That's not to say that the rivers can't rise as we go through the next couple of days once this stuff starts to pile on up. There is a look at, hold on one second, Hunter. There's a look at the what's going on in Perry. And then I was going to show you, but it looks like that dropped out there as far as my Skycam usage there. But let's go on over to Hunter then. I'll try to get that back.
All right, well, we were talking about the rainfall totals, and yes, there have been some pretty hefty numbers. We have the updated numbers in now. Take a look at your screen. So many areas are already upwards of an inch of rainfall, and there's plenty more to come in many instances. And then you get down to Dooley and Crisp County, and they're up close to 3 inches of rainfall. And I know we're talking all about the wind, and that is the main threat. But on any other day, if we had over 2 inches of rainfall in this amount of time, that would be a big story. So we have that. Over 2 inches of rain has fallen across parts of Macon County, Dooley County, down into Crisp County. And we've been saying this all night. We're going to keep seeing more and more rain. The rainfall rate's very impressive. That's going to saturate the ground. That makes it easier for these trees to go over. So yes, the storm is weakening, but also keep in mind the ground is getting more saturated as well. So that's something we're going to have to keep watching. Flooding, it's not the main threat, but rain is a contributing factor to this forecast, and that could help some trees to go down, and that could help power outages occur across parts of central Georgia as we continue throughout the night. Ben?
All right, Hunter, yeah, So wait there. I think that's a good point there when you're talking about those rainfall numbers. I'm looking here at the Macon sky cam, trying to focus it in a little bit better here for you. Again, this is reminiscent of the scene, what we saw with Irma last year, except for it was daylight, so we could see a little bit more and see the clouds rushing by. Right now, it's just a mess out there, and we may actually, as we go on through the overnight, get to see a little bit better as the rain will actually shift. Did we just see lightning right there with that? Did anybody see that flash, or was that? It could have been a transformer.
It might have been a power flash.
Could have been a transformer below right there. Okay, what we're going to do right now is just for official purposes, we're going to officially begin the 13 WMAZ News at 11 o'clock newscast. We are underway here now. If you are just now joining us, and we're going to run this open, then I'll talk to you. Check this.
Now at 11.
Search and rescue missions are underway. I'm Hillary Lane in Panama City Beach, Florida, with more on how the region is coping after Hurricane Michael.
Plus,
I'm Sabrina Burse in Dublin here in Lawrence County. For now, the rain was coming down just a little earlier, but the wind is starting to pick up. For now, we're waiting for the calm before the storm, Hurricane Michael.
And
tonight in Perry, they are preparing for a hurricane. Michael expected to bring sustained winds near 75 miles an hour through this town, while vendors here for the National Fair are hunkered down in hotels, hoping their stuff will be okay tomorrow. We're live in Perry, coming up.
And
we are at our backup facility at the Georgia Farm Bureau in case WMAZ loses a signal. We'll be here. I'm Chelsea Beinford bringing you the latest from North Macon.
13 WMAZ News at 11 starts now.
Okay, now here we are getting underway again with tracking Hurricane Michael. And you would think at 11 o'clock at night, I would say former Hurricane Michael, now Tropical Storm Michael. It is still a hurricane. It is still Category 1. And as we look here on the Macon Skycam, it tells a story. You can see the wind blowing around. It's a pretty big band that's coming through. Right before we showed you the open of the show right there, there was a pretty big blue flash that went across town. I'm not sure if that was, it shouldn't be lightning, so it could have been a transformer that's blowing there. This is a pretty big band that's coming through right now into Macon, so the numbers are starting to drive up for Macon. Here's a look at some of the wind gusts that are out there. And again, as we've been talking about, if you haven't been following us with us tonight, we've been losing data on some of these numbers here. Cordele, we lost, got back, lost again. Butler, Americus, they're gone. Unadilla has been stuck at 54. I guarantee you that number is higher than that. Warner Robins and Macon, we think those are kind of updating. Those seem to be pretty reasonable numbers, but I'm sure that we're getting gusts higher than that at times. But all of this is tropical storm force winds. Eastman in the picture now, 51 mile an hour wind gusts going on there. And as we draw back, you can see the eye of the storm, which has been making its way more into Crisp County. Here's the overall picture, just to show you that we do have some broken stuff as we get into parts of Washington County, Johnson County on down, but the heavier stuff's about to start filling on in, and once that gets in, that's going to be the steady rain. Here's one of those bands coming up through, and you follow the heavy rain, and usually your gustier winds are going to be right along with that, and then we go far south here down 75, and that's where we're seeing the main eye of the storm continue to roll. You look on the south side, south and west side, typical of a landfalling system. A lot of times you're not going to see as much as far as rain on the back side, plus some dry air starting to shoot in from the southwest here. So most of the rain is on the top side here, but still very windy on the back side, even though there may not be much in the way of rain. Let's go on over to the current picture with the numbers. And again, we were really waiting, hopeful that we would get into the 11 o'clock hour and that this number would drop down below 75, because at least then we could quit calling it a hurricane. It would be a tropical storm, and we would watch the numbers continue to come down. Still a Category 1, so amazing stuff to see a hurricane. You think about it on the beach, it's out over the ocean, right? But rolling through central Georgia still is a hurricane, and that's what we're seeing. Mainly on the outside edge here, it's tropical storm force winds. But if we can get more of these winds to come on in, you might could get some wind gusts, 60, 65, maybe in some places 70 until it starts to weaken down some more. But just know that it is weakening a little bit at a time. It's just taking some time because it started as nearly a Category 5 hurricane when it made landfall over 10 hours ago. And still is a hurricane here. So we're talking about waiting and waiting for this to come down. The highest wind gust we've had so far, Crisp County, and that was at 76 miles an hour in just the past half hour or so that we got that in. So more on this coming up in a little bit as we go on through the overnight hours. What do we expect? That's coming up. Let's go to Frank and Lori now.
All right, good information there, Ben. Thanks very much. Of course, we'll be checking back in with you shortly.
Of course, a lot of folks dealing with power outages right now. We're going to take a look at a power outage map here. Thousands without power here around Georgia and really in the southern part of the state. And mainly the powerful winds to blame on all of these power outages. When we take a wider look, tens of thousands around the state without power tonight, and crews won't be able to head out to fix those lines until conditions are safe. A reminder, do not touch any down power lines, including TV wires that touch power lines. Some electricity can still be running through those down lines, so they are very dangerous.
All right, there are a lot of counties under curfew right now across central Georgia, and these are just some of them. Some already underway. Bleckley County, obviously, Crisp County, Dooley County's already started. Baldwin is now underway. Lawrence County at midnight. Pulaski County's curfew's been underway for a couple of hours now.
And in Sandersville, beginning at midnight tonight, that is when their curfew will begin. Macon County already underway. Hancock, Twiggs, and the city of Byron started just at 11 o'clock. And Trutland County now until 12 o'clock on Thursday. However, around 10 o'clock in the morning, they're going to reevaluate, make sure that needs to stay in place. And really, the big reason for these curfews is safety, the safety of you at home, and then, of course, the crews out trying to repair the lines and so forth.
This way the crews can get out, assess the damage, and then when conditions merit, they can start out. If you're not able to get to a television tonight, don't forget, you can follow along on radio. AM 940 WMAC, of course WDEN, the powerhouse there, 99.1, B95.1, Z93.7, and our friends at Blazin 92.3, all simulcasting our storm coverage as we keep you aware of what is happening.
After tearing a path through the Florida Panhandle tonight, Hurricane Michael taking its aim at Alabama and Georgia. The storm has already claimed at least one life, the victim killed by a falling tree branch.
CBS's Hillary Lane in Panama City Beach, Florida right now.
Here in Florida, search and rescue operations are underway. Officials are warning people who stayed put that even though the storm has passed, the danger has not. Hurricane Michael was a Category 4 storm when it made landfall on Wednesday afternoon. Michael's maximum sustained wind speeds reached 155 miles an hour, just 2 miles an hour shy of becoming a Cat 5 hurricane.
Hurricane Michael is the worst storm that the Florida Panhandle has ever seen.
It was also the third most powerful hurricane ever to hit the U.S. mainland after Camille and Andrew.
It was terrifying, honestly. There was a lot of noise. I mean, we thought the windows were going to break any time.
Michael's storm surge brought up to 14 feet of water onto the shores of the Panhandle. It was also expected to drench the region with as much as a foot of rain. As night fell, the hurricane was moving northeast at about 16 miles per hour towards Alabama and Georgia. Those states, along with the Carolinas and Virginia, are now bracing for downpours that could produce flash flooding. One early estimate put the initial cost of the storm damage at over $10 billion. The White House says President Trump is planning to come here to see the damage firsthand. Mr. Trump's visit is likely to happen Sunday or Monday of next week.
In Florida alone, hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses without power. Some 19,000 utility workers from at least 18 states were on standby to help get the lights back on.
Outer bands at Michael made quite an impact when they moved into central Georgia earlier today. Our Austin Love was in Crawford County where a tornado rolled through that area, and he gives us a look at the damage.
And the power of Hurricane Michael is already being seen here in southern Georgia as we're in Crawford County. A tornado spurred by Hurricane Michael came through this area about 4:30 here on Wednesday. Just take a look over here. You can be able to see just the power of these winds as it just ripped through Crawford County. Be able just to see just this tree, thick tree, snapped like a toothpick over here. And then as we're walking over here, and this is also right in the front of someone's yard, you can see I'm just walking through mud and slush and just thick water, just puddles right through here. As we turn our attention over to here, just another tree snapped like two trees snapped like twigs. This is the front yard of someone's house. Countless trees were taken down as the power of this tornado ripped through this area. And the sad thing is this is just the beginning. Michael is looking to be able to bring its full force here to the Macon, Georgia area just later today. But reporting here in Crawford County, I'm Austin Love. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Austin. Zach Merchant continuing our team coverage. He's been heading out and around in Macon. Zach, what do you see?
Hey guys, we heard you talking a little bit earlier about power down trees. Right now, we are on the corner of Vineville Avenue and Park Street. Not a lot of trees down, and the power is still on as best we can tell, but if you take a look, the wind is definitely picking up right now. Ralph, if we want to take a look at some of these street signs here, we can see they're really starting to blow, and the wind and the rain bands, we're at a point now where it's picking up, and just as I said that, I think it's starting to taper off a little bit. But take a look, we're under the cover of a gas station here, but if you want to take a look at what's piling up on the roof, show you some of the spillover here. Under our light here, you got water coming off the roof here at a pretty great clip. We've been here for about 20 minutes, and that's what it's looking like all throughout the time here. Also, if you take a look at the street, Vineville Avenue, usually pretty busy, even late in the evening like we're at right now. Just a couple cars coming through. I can't say it's been totally empty because that's not true. We have seen some traffic, but not a whole lot. And we actually, just before we went live here, saw an ambulance come rushing by with its lights on, sirens on. We're not sure where they were going, but certainly hope whatever situation they were going to, everyone turns out all right and stays safe. Obviously, keeping an eye on this. Keeping an eye on Michael as it comes into Macon. We're definitely feeling the rain and wind pick up as the evening has gone on. We'll definitely keep an eye on it as the night continues. For now, guys, back to you.
Thank you, Zach.
All right, Brett Buffington is in Perry. Of course, they've been getting a little harder hit down in that area right now. Let's check in right now to see what he sees.
Tonight we've been talking about that maximum sustained wind speed of around 35 miles an hour, and that is when the firefighters, when the police officers here were going to stop responding to 911 calls. Can you see this? There's a fire truck backing in right now. That is the last truck or any emergency crew here run until the wind speed dies back down. They are at 35 miles an hour here. Sustained winds, and now where we are standing, we are certainly protected outside of us and not even getting the brunt of some of these winds, but behind us the trees have been whipping, and over across that hill you can certainly see in that light in that bank parking lot the whipping wind happening there. There are trees down all over Perry. They have been reports that trees have fallen on homes. Thankfully so far no reports there of any injuries, but you can see the fire station. Certainly trees down traveling for these first responders as they have been out dealing with Hurricane Michael's conditions here in Houston County. Certainly it has been tough for them getting out and getting around here. They've been asking us to repeat the message here that if you are in Perry, if you're in Houston County, if you just are out and about anywhere tonight in central Georgia in the path of this storm, that you stay crazy it is. We are dealing with hurricane conditions here in the central part of Georgia, hundreds of miles from the coast. That is what's happening here in Perry, Georgia tonight, where they are certainly feeling the worst of what we have seen so far here tonight. The rain is falling, the wind at times is certainly whipping gusts. The last measured gust, according to the Emergency Operations Center here in this town, was over 47 miles per hour, around the upper 40s, and certainly expected to gust higher than that the stronger or closer this storm gets to us, certainly taking its time slowing down here tonight. Of course, we'll be in Perry tonight, continuing to follow the conditions from here. For now, though, back to you guys.
All right, that was Brett Buffington reporting in Perry, where the meteorologists say some really heavy band is going through. Of course, we're taking some power hits right there, and that's what you saw during that report, but we are still on the air with you right now.
Next up, Sabrina Burse. She is live in Dublin, and how are things looking there, Sabrina?
Right now, we just moved from Bellevue Avenue. Right now, we're at the Emergency Operations Center here in Lawrence County. Power actually just went out. Their backup generator kicked back up, brought some power back in. Lance Pageant with the Sheriff's Office actually saw a transformer blow out that way. It was completely black just a few seconds ago. Power completely went out. Looked like it just picked back up again. So if you look towards this way, like I said, winds are a lot gustier. The Don Bryan actually says, the EMA director out here in Lawrence County, actually says that the winds are moving counterclockwise, which is interesting, but you can see the wind. It's rustling. Rains are much, much heavier over here. Right now, we're just kind of waiting things out until things get a little worse. In Dublin, Sabrina Burst, 13 WMAZ News.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Now, Chelsea Beinfor is in North Macon. That's our backup studio. She's on Bass Road to give us a look at conditions there.
Yeah, Frank and Lori, like you just said, we are at our backup facility. This is the Georgia Farm Bureau off of Bass Road in North Macon. If you've been keeping up with our coverage tonight, you know we have a full studio inside in case anything goes wrong. We lose power, we lose a signal at WMAZ. We will be able to continue the broadcast here in North Macon. But while we're here, we're also monitoring the weather conditions around here. We're going to take you out into the parking lot so you can see what's going on. Earlier we told you the wind hadn't picked up a whole lot here. Well, now it has. You can see this flag up here definitely blowing around in the breeze. The rain starting to pick up a little bit as well. You can probably hear it popping off of my microphone. We'll pan over here to one of these street lights again. You can see it coming down at a slant, coming down a little bit heavier now. The rest of Bass Road been pretty quiet. We haven't seen many cars driving by. We have, of course, though, been up in the studio monitoring to make sure nothing goes wrong. We've been up there. Ooh, another big wind gust coming by. Right now you can also see on the ground over here things starting to puddle up a bit, but of course no flooding or anything serious going on right now. We will continue to keep you updated live in North Macon. Chelsea Beinfor, 13 WMAZ News.
All right, Chelsea, thanks very much for the update on conditions in the North Macon area.
Suzanne Lawler is in the EMA bunker in Crisp County, one of the areas well under the gun. She joins us now live with the latest.
Yeah, well, we actually came back outside, guys, because what we thought was the eye of the storm, and it very well could have been, although we heard that the eye was collapsing. It was very calm out here. The rain has just about stopped, but then the winds kicked up again. The winds kicked up, and Sheriff Billy Hancock said that those winds, they expect these winds to kind of keep swirling around until midnight tonight. That's why he has his deputies sheltered in place right now. But he says he's worried about damage across the county. There are numerous power lines down, and you can just tell with this wind, it's kind of hard to stand up at times. So you can imagine that the power lines are having a hard time standing up too. Also, they have numerous downed trees. Public Works was out today. We saw that when we went out on a road. We also saw the wind, though, just take a stop sign and batter it just like this. Take that wind and go like this. And we also saw a couple of street signs down. We saw a lot of damage in pecan orchards. We saw a couple of cotton fields just sitting in water. So when the sun comes up tomorrow, there will certainly be a lot to assess damage-wise. Frank, Lori, back to you.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, for that update.
I told you earlier about Rhine, Georgia was under the gun, too, and I believe we have some video from Lauren Harris, I believe, Aiden's Minute Market right there. This is a picture, and you can see got hit pretty hard right there, and that's in Dodge County, and I think that's still an area that probably is going to see some heavier gusts, too. So that is in Rhine, Georgia right there, so you can see damage pretty widespread at the moment. Don't forget to stay weather aware by downloading the 13 WMAZ mobile app as this storm continues to roll through. Weather updates when you need them in order to stay safe.
Who would have thought that we'd be talking about hurricane force winds in central Georgia? Chief Meteorologist Ben Jones tracking them all night long.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm going to tell you what, the Georgia National Fairgrounds and Agri Center right now just getting pummeled right now. We've been watching some of these displays and tents right here just whipping around, trash cans blowing around. You can see the flags. This is looking straight down the midway right here. And depending on which way I go, sometimes you have to kind of go chalk more toward the interstate so that the rain's behind the camera so you can see. But it is just whiteout blinding conditions sometimes, and we can see out on, I mean, look at this flag right here. That is amazing. These wind gusts right here could easily be 60 miles an hour going on right here in Perry. And there go the lights. All right, so that means that they just lost power in Perry. I'm not sure what these are. These must be fair-related lights that could be on generators out there maybe, or some other power source. But there we just saw them lose power, and that's blinking too. It's brutal right there in Perry. So if you're anywhere in that area, just don't go near the windows, stay inside, because this is definitely high-end tropical storm force winds. but could even have maybe even occasional wind gusts that are near hurricane force on the low end, getting near 70 plus mile per hour wind gusts. And we've already seen that in Crisp County, where it went 76 mile per hour. That is the highest one we've seen so far. Let me see if I can, since we are checking this out here, see if I can zoom us out here in Perry. And it looks like it's all going dark here. I'm going to zoom around, looking toward the, all right, it looks like there is power to the baby barn here, and as we get into the clock tower, so there's power still there. Look at the wind and rain coming around the corner of this building right here, though. Just some amazing stuff coming through there, and you can see it whipping off this building too. Just one of many spots that I've been watching with the sky cams. It's been really hard to see in some of these places because clearly it's dark outside, but you get the idea. And that building, of course, hasn't been too long since it was completed. Looks like it's doing okay out there, but we just saw the rest of the power go. And you can see some of the light poles right here just getting whipped around. So easily 60 mile per hour wind gusts at times. Now, if you actually go to what we're showing with the graphic, we've been losing data in so many places. It's showing 40 in Warner Robins. Macon now checking in at 52 miles an hour for wind gusts. That is well into tropical storm. Unadilla is stuck. It shows 54. Consider that thing off because it's been sitting there for a long time. I'm sure the wind gusts are much higher than that, as is in Perry with what we're seeing. So I would think it's safe to say that you could easily be seeing 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts occasionally coming through there. Maybe relaxing at times, but occasionally gusts at least that high. So that is enough to do some damage, and as we saw, of course, knock power out to some areas. All right, let's see what Hunter's got pulled up. I'll pull that up over here. It looks like we've got the Warner Robins sky cam looking from Houston Healthcare right now. Let's see if we can maybe go in and focus it up just a little bit, but you can see the same thing really picking up here right now. Some of these cars will still drive by every once in a while, and they go pretty slowly. Now, when I was in Perry, we were looking toward the west earlier over 75, and there was one car out there, and it was just creeping by. And I can imagine if you were in a semi going through there, it would probably push you off the road, anything that was high profile like that. Okay, so I showed you the wind gust numbers, and we're having to kind of just guess at some of the numbers because we're losing data in so many places, but that is the norm whenever you have a big tropical system that will come in. All right, let me show you the radar shot here for just a second, and we're going to go over to Austin here. You can see the eye of the storm. Again, it looks kind of weird looking because you're not seeing it in that usual donut right there, and that is because on the back side here, we're seeing the rain kind of shut off. Suzanne talked about it a minute ago where it got calm for a little bit. That would make sense kind of close to the eye where the winds aren't whipping as hard as once you get right into the center if you're underneath it. And then on the back side here, now the wind is starting to pick up again because now the second half of the storm is coming through. Austin, let me go over to you for a second.
Yeah, let's talk about some of these banding structures starting to develop on the northern side of the circulation. If we can zoom on in here to Houston and Twiggs counties, and we see where we have this darker red starting to show up on the radar, these heavier bands are what's going to allow these stronger wind gusts to go back to the ground. So I've been tracking some of the wind gusts aloft over here with our GR2 analyst radar, and I'm able to pick up 60, 65 mile an hour winds about 800 feet off the surface of the earth. So some of this heavy rainfall here are going to be able to bring some of those stronger wind gusts to the surface. That's likely what rocked Perry just a little while ago, and this is going to be moving up through Warner Robins, getting there right about now. And then soon after that, maybe within the next half hour or so, making it up into Bibb County here, closer to Macon. So the wind speed's really starting to pick up here closer to Macon. Ben?
Yeah. In it here, you're talking about Warner Robins right now and everything, and every time I keep going back to this sky cam, every once in a while you just see a big sheet of wind and water go by right there. So clearly picking up in Houston County, clearly in Macon right now, we're seeing these kind of amazing numbers, and we will go on over to that sky cam to see if this will pop up for you here. Here is Macon, where we're getting wind gusting now between 50 and 60 miles per hour. And again, as we went back to Irma last year, it was in Macon. Our top speed hit 60. Well, Crisp County has already beaten that. It's 76, and that was the last time we were able to get data out of there. And that was on the UGA Mesonet system down there. And apparently that, as Austin said, may have even taken a hit too, because power outages are all over the place. And either that or it could be damage on some of the sensors too. But we're seeing power out in so many places. We even saw it happen live at the fairgrounds there just a moment ago. So far in downtown Macon, I've been trying to kind of scan around a little bit to see if we, are seeing parts of town that are going with power out. We did see a big blue flash earlier over downtown. Trying to look out there. I see it's
Macon's gusting to 52 right now.
Macon's gusting at 52 right now. Yeah, we've got, it looks like there could be some power out in some spots out there. There's some buildings in the dark back there. As I'm zooming around here, we're heading back on the other side of the loose heart tower here at Navison Health, and we're going to come back around to the Hemlock side here, and we can zoom down, and clearly the cameras are just shaking all over the place. The camera's shaking, and you can see the traffic lights down there. So again, this reminds me of Irma last year. Kind of zoom on around here and focus in. And again, we're seeing these things just get kind of jostled around out there, and you can see the sheets of rain and wind coming across. So again, 52, there goes a car there, 52-mile-an-hour wind gusts going on in Macon right now, and this is right along with what the models were showing would be possible tonight in through the overnight hours, and this is not anything that's going to stop anytime soon. It's going to continue to be like this for a while. Let's go back over to Perry here just for a second, see how